"Jack, help me please," his wife asked him. "Lucy, what's wrong?" He came up to her. "Look, there's a leaky faucet," the woman said as she fiddled in the kitchen. Now the couple lived in a nice apartment. Expensive furniture, appliances. The husband helped his wife with everything. And now when the faucet broke, he could have left it for tomorrow because he had things to do, but he went under the sink to fix it. "Oh, Jack, why don't you and I get along with the kids?" Lucy was telling him. Don't hurt her feelings. Jack turned away from her. Sometimes he felt guilty about himself. Can you imagine how much we could have given the kids? Some of them are sleeping under the fence with 2 or 3 kids. Why doesn't God give us? It must be because of that sin, Lucy thought. She would sit down at the table, put her head in her hands and start crying. "Don't cry, darling. It'll be all right. Believe me," Jack hugged her. He loved his wife very much. "No way. The years go by. We're not getting any younger," she sobbed. "Listen, love, why don't we do IVF?" he asked her. Lucy raised her head. She liked this question. She had been nurturing it for a long time, but she was afraid to continue to her husband. In the first place, it is expensive. In the second, it is necessary to prepare for a long time. But now, when Jack himself suggested it, Lucy was not at all against it. "Why, can you arrange it?" she asked him. "Well, I'll make a couple of calls. I think we'll get a good deal," he said. He kissed his wife on the cheek, wiped her tears and hugged her. And then the long preparations began. Lucy spared nothing. She quit her job, dieted, did everything the doctor said, and then finally the operation took place. Now she had to wait a little longer to see if the fetus had taken root or not. When Jack brought Lucy home, she was afraid to move, in case she slipped or fell. She was lying in bed. "Lucy, you're not sick," her husband used to say when he saw her acting up. "Oh, I'd better be on the safe side." The woman was very worried about something. Maybe it was nerves, or maybe it was just the way it was supposed to be. But it didn't work out the first time. "Don't be upset, we'll try again," her husband told her. "No, that's it, Jack. I can't do this anymore. If it doesn't work again, I'll lose interest in life," his wife told him. "Darling, have you made up your mind?" He came up to her. "Yes, I've made up my mind," she said. "Maybe we should consider adoption." He tried to give her some more ideas. "No, no adoption, no echo." She put her head in her hands again and cried, and then Lucy went into a long depression. Jack and Lucy met when they were both students. She was in teacher training, he was in medical school. Lucy was a fun-loving girl, but only in the dormitory or at the institute. She didn't like to go out, because she was always learning lessons, making notes, making plans. And then the girls came and started urging her to go out. "Lucy, why should you sit here in the dorm alone? Come with us, you'll have fun," said her friend Julia. She closed her notes and looked at her friends. "Well, what is it to you, so beautiful and sit here alone?" "Cuckoo," said her girlfriend. "Maybe I like it. Maybe it's my life." Lucy did not know what to answer her, because she really did not want to go anywhere. "Come on, girls, let's go." They turned around and went. At that moment, Lucy was offended that they had offered her once and that was all. They used to beg her for an hour. "Well, wait, I'll go with you. I'll see what you're doing there." She got up from the chair, but now she had to put on something nice. "Do you want me to give you my dress?" Julia came right up to her. "Well, let me try it on." The girl didn't mind. Julia pulled out of the closet dress, of which she had a great number. No matter how many times she put it on, Lucy was forever admiring such beauty. "And what? Can I go straight out in it?" Lucy asked her. "Of course you can wear it, and don't even think about it," Julia said. "And I can give you some beads." Angelica immediately jumped up. Lucy was pleased that her friends loved and appreciated her. She put on the dress, tried on the beads, which went very well with the outfit. She put on a little lipstick, and together they left the room. "Well, Lucy, I don't even believe that you are coming with us today." Julia walked beside her and whispered, "What's the big deal?" Lucy didn't understand. "Well, where shall we go?" The girl didn't want to talk about it anymore. "I don't know." Angelica shrugged her shoulders. It was spring outside. The warm days had begun. "Maybe we should go to a cafe. They have a summer veranda," said one of the girls. "Oh, that's a great idea." Julia approved. The girls walked a little in the park. The fountains had been turned on recently, so it was very beautiful. Afterwards, they actually went to the cafe they had talked about. The girls took one of the tables. There was practically no one here, but by the evening everyone should have arrived. Live music was playing. It was so nice and romantic. "Well, who's going to order what?" Julia asked. "Me, ice cream," said Lucy. "What are you doing?" All the girls turned to her. "What's the big deal? You can't have ice cream." She didn't understand. Everyone laughed, and in the end everyone ordered what they wanted. When it started to get evening, it got a little dark outside. People began to gather in the summer veranda. At one table there were some young guys sitting at the table, discussing something loudly. "Look how cute they are," Julia said in Lucy's ear. "What are you doing? You dragged me out on the street, and now you want to marry me?" Lucy looked at her seriously. "Oh, Lucy, I just showed you the boys and now you want to marry them." Julia took offense at her. Lucy got up from the table and went home. At the entrance, she accidentally bumped into a young man. She looked at him. "Young lady, you'll have to excuse me," he said to her then. "Okay, you'll excuse me." For some reason, Lucy thought he was going to start swearing, saying something insulting to her, and she was ready to fight back. But the guy was polite. He smiled at the girl, touched her hand, and went to his company. But before he reached his table, he saw that Lucy didn't go to breathe fresh air on the porch, but went somewhere else. The guy waved to the guys, showing that he would be right there, and he ran after Lucy. "Girl, wait," he shouted to her. And Lucy increased her step. For some reason, she was afraid now. Yes, she had left alone, but she would never go back because her pride would not allow it. Finally, the guy caught up with her, stopped her. "What do you want from me?" She turned to him and glared. "Where are you going?" he asked her. "Young man, what do you care? Did you want to hear something else from me?" she said to him. He didn't know what to say, so he said the first thing that came into his head. He remembered it was 2 minutes ago. Lucy was nervous. "Can I walk you out?" the guy asked. He was circling the girl. Okay, Lucy had no choice. Either go with him and feel confident or go alone and be scared the whole way. There was no telling what else could have happened there. They walked and talked, getting to know each other along the way. The young man's name was Jack, and he was in medical school. "Tell her more about yourself," he asked her. "I've said all I can." Lucy lowered her eyes. She laughed the whole way. Jack turned out to be a very pleasant young man. He told various stories, joked, showed something to the girl. Finally, they reached the dorm where the girl lived. She didn't look at the young man, not knowing what to say goodbye. "Okay, bye," he touched her. The skin was soft. "Goodbye." Lucy went to her room. She went to bed, but sleep wouldn't come to her. She kept thinking about this guy she had met today. It had to happen. All this time she sat in the dormitory, never went out, only studied. And then she went out for a few minutes and met him right away. She said out loud. Lucy really liked Jack. He was handsome, tall, and funny, which was important. Lucy heard laughter in the hallway. She realized the girls were back. She turned her back to the wall so no one would ask her any questions, but no one wanted to ask anything. Her friends didn't go into the room. They went somewhere else. Lucy didn't need that. She continued to think about Jack. I wonder if we'll meet him again or not, she thought to herself. Today, Lucy fell asleep with a smile on her face because she realized that if they met this Jack again, she would not miss her chance and they would start dating. Lucy, there's someone to see you. A friend came up to her in the evening. Who? She looked up. Who? Grandpa Pedo. Jack, your friend from last night, her roommate told her. Her heart beat faster in her chest. Lucy began to worry. Her hands were shaking. She didn't know what to do. She had a simple bundle on her head and was wearing a robe. How to go out like that? And then she stopped in front of the mirror. Stop. If he wants to talk to me, if he likes me, he'll like me like this, she said. She changed her slippers and went out into the hallway. The girl went down to the watch. He was standing there all dressed up, with flowers. Hello, he said to her, as if not paying attention to her appearance. Hello, Lucy answered him. I take it you weren't expecting me. He handed her the flowers. If you will wait for me a few minutes, I will change my clothes and come down, said the girl and blushed, because she realized that she had done wrong. Sure, I'll wait. He sat down on a chair that stood there, and she went back into the room. So Lucy, tell me if the girls were waiting for her. What can I tell you? Guys like a guy, she started to change. Yeah, I see. A guy like a guy, she never left the dormitory, and here she is dressed for a walk with a young man. Her friend teased her. Enough already, Con. The girl looked at her. After that, she came out to Jack and they went for a walk. I'm sorry I'm not inviting you anywhere. The scholarship doesn't allow it yet, Jack told her honestly. And I did not think about it. Lucy looked at him and realized that this man is very decent. So now they continue to walk every day. How long have you got left to study? Lucy asked him. Oh, a lot more, he said. I see, the girl thought to herself. A doctor is not an easy profession, as long as the institute, then internship, and there and then. Jack continued to say. I see, and next year will be my last year, the girl answered him. It's good. Now you'll graduate from the institute, we'll get married, then we'll start working. We'll have an apartment, children. Jack began to reason. What? She stopped. Come on, I'm kidding, he laughed and hugged the girl. When summer vacation came, Jack and Lucy were already a couple. They went everywhere together. They didn't need anyone else, neither girlfriends nor friends, only if she or he were near them. Come and visit us this summer, Jack suggested. Are you inviting me to meet your parents? She asked. Well, why not? He answered her. Okay, and then you come to our place, she told him. Agreed, he agreed, looking at his beauty and smiling. So, almost half of the summer Jack spent at Lucy's, and the next half she spent at his place. Everybody liked their son's fiancé. It was all very well. When school days came again, Jack and Lucy came again to this city. They began their studies. Now they were dating. It was getting serious. One day Jack went to meet Lucy and she was nowhere to be found. Go to the park. She's there, her roommate told him. Jack found Lucy, indeed, in the park. She was sitting on a bench, crying. What happened? He asked her. Jack, how could we let this happen? She asked him. What happened? I asked again. He couldn't understand what could have happened. I'm expecting a baby. She looked at him with eyes red from crying. Jack fell silent. I don't even know what to say, he answered the girl. And you say something? Tell me how you could do this. She continued to cry. Honey, come on, we'll think of something, he said. Do you want to get rid of our child? She didn't understand. Well, why are you so rude? Why get rid of it? Look how young we are now. We don't need this child at all. In a year or two, we'll get married. Everything will be fine. We'll have an apartment money, and then we'll be able to think about children, he told her. Lucy looked at him. She loved this man very much, so she believed him now. Jack had made a deal with someone, and now Lucy was in the hospital. They didn't take any tests from her. They didn't ask her anything. They just did everything they needed to do. Now she was in her room, coming out of anesthesia, and she was crying again. My dear, don't cry, please. I promise you that everything will be fine, he told her, but she just clung to him, sobbing and believing in what he said. The girl graduated from the institute. Now she could go to work, but Jack was against it for some reason. Why are you against it? I don't understand, Lucy said. It turns out that I'm still a student, still studying, and you've already gone to work, he told her. What's wrong with that? The girl looked at him incomprehensibly. Lucy did not listen to him, went to one school, to the second, to the third. When the girl settled, she was assigned a room in the dormitory. She told Jack about it. He was very pleased. Now the young man and the girl lived together. Well, now we can play a wedding, Jack said to his favorite girl. Let's not wait for anything, just touch a student wedding, laughed Lucy. Well, why not? In the dormitory, we'll put tables in the corridor, invite everyone, sit, celebrate, Jack told her. That's what they decided. There were no proposals, no rings, nothing. Everything modest, everything homemade. Jack's parents brought something, Lucy's parents brought something. The young people were really doing well. Somehow all the stories were forgotten. Now the young people were living together. Jack's studies, internships, and everything else were coming to an end. Lucy was already firmly established at school, so it could be said that life had taken place. But there was one thing missing from the young family's life. Lucy could not get pregnant in any way. At first she kept quiet, didn't say anything to anyone, because she didn't want to be discussed or anything. But at school, her colleagues, mother and mother-in-law kept saying only one thing, when they would have grandchildren. But Lucy couldn't do anything about it. Sometimes she thought it was all Jack's fault. If he hadn't forced her to have an abortion then, maybe now they'd have a bunch of kids running around the house. But as it happened, it happened. She loved her husband very much, so she didn't say anything to him. And then one day Jack and Lucy had a big row. He was very tired. He came home. Lucy was doing something. She asked Jack some question and he didn't answer. She came into the room. "Why don't you answer me?" she asked him. "You asked something, I'm sorry. I just didn't hear." He was sitting on the couch, looking at some magazine. "Jack, let's talk about this straight." She sat down next to him. "Okay, if you want to, let's talk," he told her. "You remember, you made me have an abortion. I think that's why I can't have kids." She wasn't looking at him, but in the other direction. "You wouldn't believe it. I've been thinking about it myself. I blame myself. I don't know what to do." He was very discouraged. Lucy felt ashamed that she was blaming her husband alone for the situation. After all, he had only offered and she could have refused. She had her parents. She could have called them. Then she and her mom would have decided what to do. "I'm sorry." She turned to him and hugged him. "No, Lucy, it's you who forgive me." He kissed her. The years went by. Lucy worked. Jack worked too. He was climbing higher and higher up the career ladder. At the hospital, first he was an assistant surgeon, then an assistant, and finally he became a surgeon himself. Lucy was becoming more and more withdrawn every day. She had a headache. She kept muttering to herself, "Nin, what's going on in our family?" Jack asked her. "Nothing. It's just you and it's just me. But if we had a child." She stopped talking because she realized that she was going to say something offensive to him again. "And what if we had a child?" He looked her in the eyes. "Nothing." She turned back to the stove. "Lucy, please forgive me for being a fool. But I was young, stupid. I thought that now you'll give birth. You won't build a career. You'll break everything." He pressed himself against her. It was at that moment that Lucy started shouting all sorts of hurtful things at him. "You're a doctor. Why can't you do anything?" She looked her husband in the eyes. "Well, my love, don't get upset. I'll definitely think of something," he promised her. At that very moment, Jack arranged to have IVF treatment. He hoped that everything would be fine after that. But when it didn't work out and his wife became depressed, he didn't know what to do next. Yes, he asked her to try again, but Lucy didn't want to do it. A year passed, the second. The woman still worked the same way. She always thought of her children with fondness. The neighbor downstairs had a daughter, and she looked after her better than her mother. "Lucy, maybe we should think about adopting a child." Jack approached her again. He thought that if she felt that way about the neighbor girl, she would feel the same way about the adopted child. "No, I've already told you that adoption or fostering is out of the question. It's either yours or none," she told her husband. "Well, let's try IVF again. Medicine has advanced further now. It won't be like last time," he promised her. "Are you sure about that?" his wife asked him. "I can see how upset you are." "You think I'm not upset with you," he told her. Lucy walked over to her husband. She sat down, put her hand on his shoulder. "You know how I'm scared. You haven't experienced what I've experienced. When a child is conceived inside you, it's an inexplicable feeling. Yes, you can tell me that I haven't felt it yet, that it never happened, but it's not true. A woman, when she learns that soon she will become a mother, she immediately begins to imagine how she will hold the baby in her arms, how everything will be in the future in their family," Lucy said, and cried again. "Everything, my love, I promise you. Don't cry. Everything will be fine. Tomorrow we will go to the appointment. You will start to prepare, and I will make arrangements for future surgery," he said. Now Lucy was 38 years old, and she finally decided to take this step. And again, a whole year? Taking pills, dieting, preparing, going through all the doctors and all the other procedures. Finally, the doctors had done their job. Now it had to wait again. But unlike the last time, now the woman was walking. She was practicing. She was reading up on some breathing exercises. She was doing it all. Jack supported his wife in everything. When time passed, all was well. The fetus had taken root. Lucy couldn't believe it. She had no idea now. She didn't think about a future child until the belly was visible. She hadn't even told anyone that they were going to have a baby soon. "Why don't you tell anyone about it?" Jack asked her. "Quiet, and you don't talk about it either." She put her finger to her lips. "Are you afraid of jinxing it?" Jack smiled. He was so happy, not just for himself and for Lucy, but in general, that they had made it all work and would soon be happy parents. "Do you realize how old we are? Now we're going to have a daughter or a son. And what? They'll call us grandparents," Lucy kept saying. "What are you talking about? Look at you. You look like a 30-year-old girl," her husband told her. "Thanks for the compliment, of course, but still, Lucy turned away. Well, that's one problem gone. Another one be done. So what did you want more than anything, pregnancy or youth? Jack laughed at her. Okay, it's okay. And as long as it ends well. Lucy was worried about that too. Don't even think about it. You'll have a scheduled C-section. And I'll be the surgeon, he told her and kissed her. Even though so much time had passed, but he, as in their first meeting, admired her and loved her very much. Lucy went shopping. She looked at various baby clothes. She knew that you cannot buy anything before the time, but still, sometimes she could not stand it and bought. Kippers, cradles, onesies, everything was so small and pretty that she just couldn't resist it. Why did you buy so much stuff again? Jack used to come home. You see, I couldn't resist, Lucy told him, and he understood her. The doctors, as well as Jack himself, watched Lucy's condition. On a certain day, they admitted her to the hospital because it was too risky. She lay in the ward, and Jack looked in and out of it incessantly. On the second day of her stay in the clinic, it was late evening. Jack was very tired after the operation, but he couldn't help stopping by Lucy's room. Lucy, my love, are you asleep? He opened the door, but there was silence in response. He realized that the woman couldn't have gone anywhere, so he went in and turned on the light. Lucy was lying on the bed. She seemed unconscious. Lucy, Lucy, what's wrong with you? He began to pat her cheeks, but she didn't come to her senses. Then he went out into the corridor, called the orderlies. They put her on a gurney and took her to the operating room. Everything was done very urgently and quickly because there was not a minute to lose. Jack was now standing by the operating table. He had just finished another operation, so his eyes were blurry. There was a very strong fatigue, but the man realized that he had to save his wife and his child. Anesthesia, various medications. Lucy's blood pressure started to drop. Jack cried. He did everything he could, but the man failed. When the baby was removed from her belly, Lucy's heart was still beating. Her husband did everything he could, but he couldn't save her. Right there in the operating room, he fell to his knees in front of the gurney and just started screaming. They sedated him, took him to his room. Lucy's body was taken to the morgue. The baby was taken by a pediatrician. How this could happen, what happened, no one understood or knew. Jack was depressed. The man could do nothing at all. Now it was necessary to bury his wife and take his daughter from the maternity hospital. There was nothing at all in the man's mind. He was like a somnambulist, like he was walking and doing something, but he didn't realize it. Colleagues at the hospital were very afraid that because of this stress, Jack might give up the baby girl. They prepared for it, even prepared a speech to tell him when he came to talk about it, but Jack didn't. He went back to the birthing center where he still had his baby girl. Katie is mine, he stroked her head in her hand. Why Katie? The nurse standing next to him asked him. Lucy wanted to name her daughter that, he said. Okay, I'll leave you two here alone, the girl said, walking out of the room. Jack sat looking at the baby girl, talking to her. But then he thought that if he hadn't had that baby, Lucy wouldn't be dead right now. He removed his hands from her crib, turned away. In that same moment, the man realized he was wrong. What was the child's fault? After all, it was he himself who convinced his wife to do IVF, agreed with everyone. No, it's his daughter, it's Katie's memory. I'll never give her up and I won't give her to anyone, the man cried. Jack, you did good. You walked out of the room and met a good comrade. Thank you, the man nodded his head. He realized that now he had a huge responsibility. Well, we'll make out a maternity leave for you. He sat in front of the head doctor. I don't know what to do, what we will live on. One allowance is obviously not enough. Jack raised his eyes at the chief. All right, let's make a deal with you. You go on maternity leave. You don't worry about anything. But if there is any complicated operation or situation, we call you in, and then we pay you some money? The hen doctor looked at him. Okay, I think we'll be able to get by for a while, Jack said. But you should have a friend or any other person with whom you could put the child at any time of the day or night, the chief said. I realized the man walked out of the office. It didn't seem that bad. He picked up his little girl, his treasure, and went home with her. Not an hour later, there was a knock on the door. Who is it? The man asked as he came to the door. Jack, it's Grandma Betty, the neighbor, he heard back. Hello, come in, was the man surprised. Hi, the grandmother woman was carrying a big bag. Jack looked at her with surprise. I'm here with my daughter. Sorry, I'm a little busy. Jack spoke as if embarrassed by the neighbor. It's all right. I know it's hard for you to be alone. That's why I'm here. She went to the kitchen, put a bag on a chair, and started to take out everything that was in it. What's this? The man looked at her and listened to see if the girl was awake in the next room. Jack, I'm alone. You're alone. I have nothing to do at home anyway. So I decided, and why not help a good man? Smiled the old lady and looked at the man. Thank you, of course, but I would not like to bother anyone, said the man. He was uncomfortable. Don't worry, it's fine, smiled Baba Badi. After that, she began to make herself at home here. Anna looked at what was in the kitchen. After that, she put all the things she had brought with her into the closet. After that, she went into the room where the crib was. You are so good. How many things you bought? The main thing is that everything fits. She looked at the small things. It wasn't me, it was Lucy when he couldn't continue. And, well, stop nonsense. You now need to think about other things, said the woman. It's okay. He went to the kitchen for a drink of water. From that day on, Grandma Betty became a frequent guest at Jack's house. Now he had no problem going out wherever he needed to go. The woman loved to take care of the baby. She bathed her, fed her, showed Jack how to change her diaper and everything else. Got it? Sometimes the neighbor would look at him. Thank you so much. I don't know what I would have done without you. He hugged the woman. Come on, my darling. Anna realized that she might cry now, so she clamped her eyes shut so he wouldn't see it. It was easy together. Jack was called to work. He went there without any problems. He didn't have to worry about anything. Jack, you should find a good woman now, a comrade and colleague at work told him. I already have, he smiled. No, your neighbor doesn't count. Yes, she's taking care of Arinka. But that's not it, John said and smiled. Well, I won't say anything. I have a little daughter in my arms. First of all, I should think about her, not about some women. And I will never betray Lucy's memory, because I am to blame for what happened, he said sadly. Tell me, what was your fault? John touched his arm. Look, I'm the one who made her participate in this. I made the deal, and most importantly, I'm the one who didn't save her. He closed his eyes with his hands and cried. Friend, calm down. No one is guilty of anything. Even if you were not after the operation then, there was still nothing that could be done. John tried to support him. That's it, I have to go home. Jack got up from his chair and headed for the door. Don't forget, his comrade looked after him. He didn't want to lose this man, neither as a friend nor as a good specialist. You think you'll let me forget? The man smiled and left the office. He had to go home. Lately, Jack thought he realized that Katie was being looked after. She wouldn't go hungry. She would be taken for a walk, changed, bathed. But he still didn't want to leave her alone. For some reason now, he remembered the words of his wife, who had told him about how a woman felt when life began in her. Jack felt such responsibility now. He was both daddy and mommy. Oh, Jack, we're just about to go out. Anna greeted him at the door. Let me help you. He took the stroller and together they went outside. Are you coming with us? She asked him. If you allow me, I would rest a little. The man looked at the neighbor with a tired look. Of course, go home. Everything is cooked on the stove. Put it on, eat, and go to bed, she said caringly, like a mother. He went up the stairs, and he didn't know who to thank. Lucy must have sent this kind woman to him. Jack couldn't imagine how he would have coped without her. Now that Katie was under Anna's watchful eye, there was nothing to worry about. Jack entered the apartment, which smelled delicious. He immediately made his way to the kitchen at first. When the woman had offered him outside to eat, he had thought that the only thing he wanted now was to sleep. But the odors that wafted through the apartment awakened his appetite. When the man was in the kitchen, he took a plate out of the cupboard and poured some fragrant borscht into it. Thank you, Baba Betty, he said aloud. Now the feeling of sleep and fatigue came over him so much that he was afraid he wouldn't make it to bed. The woman returned to the apartment. The girl was asleep. All was well. She saw the dirty plate in the sink. She smiled. That meant she had eaten after all. It meant Jack was coming out of his apathetic state. The months flew by quickly. Even though Jack was home, he traveled a lot for work. People wouldn't stop getting sick, and without a great surgeon, sometimes it was just not manageable. Jack, you can't not come home tonight, Anna told him. Yes, I remember that today is my princess's birthday. He looked at Arinka with love. She was like 2 drops of water like Lucy. Now this little girl was the meaning of his life. When everything was finished at work, the The man hurried to the store while it was still open. He bought a cake, candles, balloons, and was now rushing to where they were waiting for him. Of course, he would want the three of them gathered around the table. Tonight it would be, except that instead of Anna, Jack would want Lucy. "This is for you." A man entered the apartment and handed Grandma Nura a gorgeous bouquet of roses. "Jack, why?" The woman was embarrassed. "I don't know how else to thank you for what you're doing. Without you, I'd probably go crazy." He looked over the woman's shoulder, and a little girl was striding toward him from the room. "Daddy," she threw herself around his neck. Haiti was wearing a beautiful blue dress, blonde curls shaking merrily on her head. The little girl's blue eyes just glowed. "My princess," he lifted her in his arms, and then a small bouquet appeared in his hand. Beautiful, the girl didn't know many words yet, so she expressed her emotions sparingly. "Happy birthday," kissed her father on her chubby cheek. And then they went into the room. There was a table with treats on it. "Here, I wanted to please," said Anna. "Why, who will eat all this?" and not understand the man. "Nothing, the cake tomorrow you will take with you to work. Treat your colleagues there, and put the hot food in the refrigerators," said the woman. "You are so kind, and you help us so much," the man never tired of saying. "It's a pleasure for me, or else I'd be sitting alone at home, growing old," she said sadly. At that moment, Jack thought for the first time that the woman might have no one else, and that she was wasting her love on them. At first, he hesitated to ask, but then he did. "Tell me, Anna, do you have no one at all?" he asked. "Yes, it didn't work out like that. When I was young, I got married. We lived well, but he died." The woman was silent. "So you never married again?" Jack asked, now that they were talking about it. "No, I never met anyone like my husband." She wiped away a tear that had slipped down her cheek. "I'm sorry," he took her hand. "It's all right. Enough about sad things. We have a party today." She looked at the girl who was playing with a doll her father had just given her. "Let's eat cake," said Jack. He got up and went to the kitchen. There he took the cake out of the refrigerator, took out a candle, put it in, lit it. After that, he put out the light and went with the treat into the room. It was necessary to see the eyes of the girl, who saw a huge cake and a candle in the middle. She couldn't blow it out for a long time. Then her father helped her and made a wish for her. "May everything go well in your life," he said, and looked at her. Life went on, and some time passed. Grandma Betty continued to take care of Kathy. One evening, when Kathy was already asleep, the woman got ready to go home. "Don't go, let's have tea," Jack suggested to the neighbor. He didn't want her to be alone. "Good. There are some cakes in the fridge," she mumbled. They sat down at the table. Jack didn't ask for anything. He stood up, poured the tea himself, put the cakes on the table. "How are you doing? We don't talk that often." The man asked her. "All is well," she smiled. "Anna was always like that." "You were talking about your husband then. Did he have no one?" Jack asked to keep the conversation going. "Why not? He had a sister. She lived in the village. She had a daughter late in life. After her husband was gone, I almost every day went to them," silenced the woman. Understandably, the man didn't know what to say next. "Selena lives there alone now. It's already hard for me to travel, so I'm here with you." The woman shook her head. "Why doesn't she move to the city?" Jack didn't understand. "How many times I offered her, I have a good apartment, we could live. Everything was fine, but she wouldn't do it. I don't want to embarrass you, that's all," Baba Betty said. "Yes, there are such people." Jack took a sip of tea. They were still sitting there drinking tea when suddenly the man's phone rang. "I'm sorry," he got up from the table. "That's all right." Anna realized he was very busy with his work, and it's not all that simple. It's people's lives that sometimes depend entirely on him. "Abba," Jack answered when he was already in the hallway. "John, urgently need your help," John called him. "What happened?" the man asked his friend. "Come and see for yourself." John didn't say anything on the phone, though he'd always talked through the situation almost completely before. "Okay, I'm coming." Jack couldn't stay indifferent to the situation. "Anna." He fell silent and looked at the woman. "Though, I understand, I'll stay with Katie. There's nothing to do at home anyway," she smiled. "I'll be grateful for your kindness all my life." He went to his room and started to dress. "Is it serious?" The woman saw Jack back in the hallway. "I don't know. They didn't explain anything. Just come right away. That's all." He put on his jacket because it was night and it was chilly outside. "That's it. Good luck to make it work, the woman told him, and when he left the apartment, she crossed the door. Jack arrived. He walked into the lobby of the hospital, greeted those who were there, ran up to the second floor. John was at his office. There was no time, so Jack changed his clothes and listened to his friend. Jack, he stopped talking because he didn't know what to say. You're so quiet. It's like Lucy's there again. Jack knew it wasn't the best comparison, but let's go. John took him under his arm and they walked quickly down the hall to the operating room. When the surgeon entered there, he saw a woman on the table. She was lying on the table. Jack immediately assessed the situation. He was having a very hard time pulling himself together. She had just given birth, but bleeding had opened up, and saving her depended on it. Okay, blood pressure. He walked quickly to the table. He could see Lucy in front of him, and all he could think about now was that he had to save her. Yes, somewhere in his head he realized that it was not his wife, but he thought if he did not save her, he would be finished with his career as a doctor. All went well, needed blood. Good thing the blood bank had some, transfused it, and the woman stabilized. You okay? John came into the room where Jack was resting. I'm fine, but now I realize that there was really nothing that could have been done, he said quietly, without opening his eyes. I'm sorry I didn't tell you right away. I thought you wouldn't be able to do it without you, his friend told him. It's okay. He got up from his chair. He decided to go home. When he arrived, it was already light outside. He looked into his daughter's room. Katie was asleep. Anna was also here on the bed. With peace of mind, the man went to his room. Jack woke up to a wonderful smell. Anna was cooking something in the kitchen again. Daddy, his daughter, came over and hugged him. Hi, baby girl, he smiled at her and hugged her back. Jack, let's go to the kitchen. I'll feed you breakfast, even though it's lunchtime, said Grandma Betty. She was standing in the doorway. Okay, I'll be there in 5 minutes. He went to wash up. They all sat together in the kitchen, Jack apologizing again for his work, and Anna only smiled. She looked at the man, saw how tired he was. His eyes were sunken, as were his cheeks, and in fact, he'd lost probably 10 pounds over the years. Listen, Jack, I'm going to make you an offer, but don't think I'm bored and want to get rid of you, the woman said, and stopped talking. He put his fork away, worried that Anna would tell him that she wouldn't sit with Katie anymore. Remember I told you I had a niece living in the village? She looked at him. Well, yes, I remember. So what then? Jack looked at her. So you could take your daughter and go there to the village. Take a break from everything, Anna told him. I'm afraid I can't do that, he looked at her. Why not? She didn't understand. You see how often I'm called to the hospital, I'll just be torn. He looked out the window and said to the woman, don't you worry, my niece Selena is a very good girl. She is such a hostess, you can't even imagine it. I assure you, take Arishka and go to the village. Your colleagues will do without you. At least once do something themselves. Then they will realize that sometimes a person needs to rest, said Anna. You know, maybe I should really listen to you, leave everything and go away. He looked at her. That's right, do that. Anna clapped him on the arm. Maria had completely cut back on her spending, but her paycheck alone still wasn't enough. The money would run out a week before the next paycheck came in. Every time she started to tell her husband about it, he changed his face. I don't understand where you spend the money. The man began to get agitated. You and I don't eat truffles and oysters. We don't go to restaurants, and we don't have any money. Harry, groceries are expensive. Plus, I have to pay the rent every month. And then my boots broke. I had to buy new ones. You could have had your boots repaired. It would have been 5 times cheaper. Harry raised his voice. Maria was silent, her head lowered. The man suddenly came up to her and put his arm around her shoulders. Well, do not take offense, do not pout. I just want that in the future we had everything, and if we do not think about it now, then we will live in an old apartment and without a car. And you take more clients, then we will be enough to live. I'm saving my salary. How much her husband was saving, Maria did not see and did not know. Harry taught her to save on everything, telling about a stable and secure future, but he was not going to save on himself. At lunchtime, the man went to a restaurant, not to the canteen or cafeteria, as many other employees. Home often came by cab, and when Maria with 2 bags of groceries came in a car with checkers, scolded and reprimanded her. You're crazy. You could use this money for a week on the bus back and forth to work and back. The bags are heavy, Harry. Maria excused herself. So what if they're heavy It's not like you're carrying them. You could have gotten on the bus and carried your bags. Maria suddenly became angry. I'll tell you what, Harry. Then we'll go to the market and shopping together at the weekend to buy groceries for the week. I'm tired of carrying those bags. My arms were shaking from fatigue for an hour and my back still hurts. No way, I rest on the weekends. I have to work hard to provide for our family, so you can't touch my weekends. I have a legal right to lie on the couch, not run around town with bags. That time they had their first fight. Maria realized that gradually all the domestic problems were falling on her head. Harry did not become a support, although no one who knew him could say anything bad about him. Neighbors greeted him, bowed politely. My, what a husband Maria has found. Always tidy, sober, it is obvious that the money, and after all, her father was a real alcoholic, said among themselves neighbors on the bench at the entrance. However, the acquaintances Maria and Harry, especially with no one, did not lead anyone. They visited Natalie and Harvey occasionally, and sometimes they came to their house. Harry didn't like such meetings. If you went to visit, you had to buy a cake at least, and that was a waste of money. Inviting them over to his house again, they'd have to give them something to eat. Why should we do that? We're fine together, he told Marie in a way that made it hard to argue. One day at work, Natalie asked Maria, "Are you going to have a party this weekend? What's the occasion?" Maria didn't understand. What? Don't you know? Natalie's eyes bulged at her friend. Your Harry has successfully passed his probationary period, and now he is the deputy director of the firm. Harvey told me yesterday. I thought it would be a good occasion to get together and celebrate. You know, Natalie, that Harry is not a fan of such gatherings, said Maria, while she wondered why her husband had not told her about it. Listen, is he going to have a bigger salary now? Why will be he already for the last month, which was a probationary period, 50% more received? He was bragging to my Harvey himself. Maria felt a chill inside her, an unpleasant lump in her throat, and her eyes darkened for a moment. She leaned back in her chair. Are you sick, friend? Natalia got worried. Come on, sit down. The girl sat Maria on the chair. She waved a magazine in front of her face so that Maria would come to her senses faster. Why did I have to tell you everything? I always mind my own business, Natalie grumbled to herself. It's not about you, Maria said quietly. It's about me. I'm pregnant. What are you talking about? Her friend gasped as she stopped waving the magazine in front of Maria's face at the news. Does Harry know? Not yet. I was going to tell you today. Natalie's joyful surprise was suddenly replaced by thoughtfulness. She sat down next to Maria. Isn't it a bit early for you to have children? Nowadays, everyone tries to get on their feet first and then have children. What are you talking about, Natalie? Children don't come from a purse of money, but from love. I really want a son. I want him to be as pretty as my little brother. I wish you were here right now. Oh, Maria, I don't think your Harry will like the news very much. I remember how he talked about building a house, buying a car, seeing the world on trips abroad, and them having children. In the evening after dinner, Maria decided to share the main news with her husband. Harry, we're going to have a baby, she said, pressing herself against her husband, who was sitting on the sofa, watching TV. What? Harry didn't immediately understand the meaning of what Harry said. I'm saying I'm pregnant, Maria repeated. We're going to have a baby. A daughter or a son. The man turned to Maria, looked at her carefully. For 2 minutes her husband was silent. Maria even began to worry, and then smiled and said, Great news. I did not think that so early it will happen, but maybe even for the best. Of course it's for the best. Children are a joy in the family. Listen, Maria, Harry slightly pushed his wife away from him. How often do women give birth to twins? I don't know. I mean, what are the odds that we could have twins? The man's eyes glistened as if he found a treasure. Actually, it depends on genetics, who had twins in the family, and then they have twins. Did you have twins? Who? Maria. Twins, I'm asking. Did you have twins in your family? Maria felt some abnormal excitement in her husband's voice. I don't think so, she answered uncertainly. We also did not seem to have. Oh, shit, he thought, and then said, just if twins were born, we would immediately maternity capital could be issued. We need money for new housing. Maria looked at her husband in surprise. She did not think about it. Maria was much more worried about the fact of pregnancy. Here you are funny. One would still give birth and raise, and you immediately twins. She quietly pushed his palm in the forehead. I'm not funny, but rationally thinking. Why go to the maternity ward twice when you can shoot off in one go? Harry frowned. Oh, come on. We'll have this one, and then we'll have the second one. We can't miss this opportunity, now that the stake is paying for a second child. That night, Harry was especially tender with Maria, and she felt happy. Children change a lot of things in a family, so with the birth of their firstborn child, small disagreements and misunderstandings would disappear. That evening, she forgot to ask her husband about his new position and salary increase, and after all went home full of determination to ask him to allocate some amount for the household. It's time to update Maria's closet, buy fall shoes, need new and coats. The first months of pregnancy, Maria, as if on wings, flew. It seemed to her that she became even more energetic, more efficient. Clients at work was just enough. When they learned that Maria was pregnant, women congratulated her. Congratulated the employee and the owner of the salon. Anna, however, added, "Only who will work now. But do not worry, Anna. To you in the salon, anyone would be happy to work," wanted to reassure her Maria. "And Maria, do not need. I need a professional, and that the level is not lower than yours. And our clients love you too much. And I'm not going to stay on maternity leave for long. I think I'm going to get a job pretty soon. I have a grandmother to take care of the baby." "That would be very nice, Maria. Very good." And in the second half of the pregnancy, the problem started. Maria began to get better, needed new comfortable clothes and shoes. But her husband was in no hurry to dress the woman. "Where do you go?" he said. "To work and back. And there you sit at your table. No one to show off to. I just can't fit into my old clothes. I don't feel comfortable in them. Soon there'll be nothing left to wear. We can't spend the money I'm saving now. You earn money, so buy with your own." Maria was upset. Just today, on her way home from work, she had spent everything she had left in her purse. But her husband was undoubled. So as not to incite a scandal, Maria borrowed money from Natalie and the next day bought herself a jacket 2 sizes larger than she needed. She decided that the jacket was not fashionable and did not suit her at all. Her friend only shook her head. "I don't know why Harry won't give you money. I saw him yesterday, going into the restaurant at lunchtime." Natalie resented him. "He has money for a good meal, but not for new clothes for his wife, especially when you're carrying a baby under your heart. That would be my coca." Maria, tired to listen to what Harvey carrying, that he does not spare money for his beautiful wife, buys her gold jewelry, and recently she wanted a mink coat, and he did not hesitate to buy her a luxury upgrade. Matching Harry from the already stingy man turned into a real stingy man. Whatever Mary asked him for money, he always refused, saying that it was not the time to spend. And the last time, when his wife showed him a prescription written by a gynecologist, he generally made a scandal and left, slamming the door. And Maria only needed to buy vitamins. Hemoglobin is low. The owner of the beauty salon, Anna, began to point out to Maria more and more often on her appearance. She did not like the look of an employee who takes rich clients. "Have you seen our sign? It says beauty parlor. Beauty, you know what I mean? Everything from the furnishings to the staff must breathe beauty. Everything here should be pleasing to the eye. Tell me, who would come here if I have employees who look more like scarecrows than nail technicians? Clean yourself up, Maria, or else." Natalie also told her friend that there were rumors in the salon that Anna wanted to fire Maria, and the main reason was that she looked inappropriate for the beauty salon. Natalie again and again helped Maria with money. She tried to find something not too expensive, but decent. It was very difficult to do. And when Harry saw her wearing a new sweater, which went very well to his wife's eyes and covered her growing belly, he again made a scandal. "I work like an ox. I work like a hard laborer to ensure that we have a good life. And you spend money on the right and left. You want vitamins, you want new clothes. If I had known that you are so greedy for money, 100 times I would have thought whether to marry you or not." Her husband's words hurt Maria. She did not understand why she should dress like a beggar. Maria had not done her hair for a long time because she did not have enough money for it. She just pinned her hair at the back of her head to keep it out of the way. They've been living together for over a year now, and she still didn't have anything in her closet to brag about, not a single decent new piece. Maria hadn't told either her grandmother or Natasha how they had celebrated their wedding anniversary. She was very ashamed. "Honey, do you remember that next weekend is our first wedding anniversary?" Maria asked Harry at dinner. "Yes." "Wow, time has flown by," he replied, pulling away from the cutlet. "How are we going to celebrate our first holiday together? Maybe we'll go out together, like to a restaurant." "Maria, You know I don't like such events. Restaurant food is very expensive and we need to save money. Maria thought that he didn't save money on himself, eating in catering establishments of not the lowest level, but she decided to be more persistent, even made a resentful look. If you don't want to go to a restaurant, let's have dinner at home, invite your mom, my grandmother, Natalie, and Harvey. We could set a nice table and celebrate. Harry didn't like the idea of feeding guests at his own expense any more than he did going to a restaurant. He thought about how much a dinner party would cost and decided against it, choosing the lesser of two evils. Let's make a deal, Nari said after thinking about it. We'll go with you to the restaurant alone. After all, it is not good to miss our first family holiday. Only pay each will pay for themselves. Maria looked at her husband with surprise, mixed with shock. Well, why? I eat little, and you are now, as not in himself everything from the table sweeps away. It's not my fault that you eat a lot. So you pay for what you order at the restaurant. Maria didn't know what to say to such a suggestion, but she was so tired of being only at work and at home that she agreed. Maria called her grandmother and asked to borrow money until payday, but maybe said, "Of course I'll give you money, but not as a loan. It'll be my first anniversary present to you. You buy yourself something nice, okay?" Maria promised that she would spend the money given by her grandmother on herself and not on groceries for her husband. She didn't say that they were going to a restaurant, but that they would pay for themselves. Grandma would simply not understand such an act of her husband. On a sunny spring day, Maria and Harry had a daughter, Anna. The girl could not look at the baby girl. Tiny newborn girl with blue eyes greedily sucked her breasts. "You are hungry, my little girl, eat, you will be big and smart." Maria herself was content with what was given in the hospital canteen. The food left much to be desired, but they had to eat everything, so that the milk would not be lost. Harry came under the windows of the maternity hospital the day after the birth and asked to see the baby. It seemed that he was not satisfied with being the father of a daughter. Harry dreamed of a son, but he and Mary did not know until the lad who would be born. The examination did not show. He said that with boys is easier and do not need to spend a lot of money on outfits, bought a couple of jeans and t-shirts and enough. Maria was happy about her daughter. Looking at the baby, she thought that very soon she would dress her up in beautiful dresses, braid pigtails, tie bows. However, she would be glad to have a son as well. The main thing is that the child is healthy, eats well, and sleeps a lot. While Maria stood at the window, showing her husband the baby, a nurse came into the room. She brought a transmission from Harry. Maria put the baby girl down, opened the package. She wanted something meat, but her husband gave her oranges and apples. The nurse shook her head when she saw the package. Who carries such fruit for nursing mothers? Apples would make the baby sick, and oranges would make her allergic. God forbid. Maria found 2 buns in the bag as well. She decided she'd have some tea. Soon she and Anna would be discharged, and she would cook herself a normal, nourishing, and caloric meal at home. On the appointed day, Maria was getting ready for discharge. She couldn't wait to let her husband hold the baby. Here will take her in his arms and realize that she is a real treasure, thought the girl, looking at her daughter, which at this time the nurse swaddled in a beautiful blanket with pink ruffles. When she learned that her granddaughter had given birth to a girl, Maddie rushed to the store to buy a dowry, and for the discharge handed over the swaddles, diapers, blankets, and a cute hat, so that the baby was packed properly. At home, everyone looked at Anna. The little girl was sleeping peacefully in her crib. Harry's mother looked for familiar features. Well, she didn't look at all like little Genka. He was dark, and she is quite light, blue-eyed. A child looks like himself. Maddie interrupted her. If everyone looked like their fathers, there'd be clones all over the world. They say children grow, Maria added conciliatingly. They may look like their mother at first, but they grow up to look like their father, or even like their grandmother. I don't know, when Harry was born, everyone was saying that he looked like his father, snorted Maria's mother-in-law. And it was like Harry didn't care at all. He carried the baby around the room in his arms for a while, and then handed her to her mother. She was still a baby. What would he do with her? Harry didn't get any more generous with the birth of his daughter. He still saved on every little thing. Maria received a child allowance, but it was woefully inadequate. Every time she asked her husband for money, he became more and more angry. She was also dissatisfied with the fact that the baby cried at night. I have to work in the morning. Calm her down, he hissed through sleep at Maria. You do not let me sleep properly." And Anna's teeth began to erupt. The girl became restless, not eating well and little sleep. She calmed down only on a walk, so Maria tried to walk longer on the street with a stroller. "Grandma, stay here with Anna. I'll run to the store," Maria asked Madi. She ran to get some formula milk. There was not enough milk because of the poor nutrition. Her grandmother saw all this and felt sorry for her granddaughter. More than once she advised her, "Go away from him, my dear, and live with Anna. Why can't we cope? She brought you up alone and raised you on your feet, and here we'll be raising a little girl together. It's not good to leave a daughter without a father. Maybe everything will get better, with hope," which was melting every day, said Maria. Grandmother was the only support for the young mother. Despite her frequent poor health, Nadi went to Mary to help with the baby, and sometimes gave her a chance to sleep, seeing that Mary was very tired. The husband didn't help at all. He was often late at work, and lately he suddenly had some business trips. One day he left for a few days without even coming home, straight from work. "I'm going away for a few days on a business trip," was all Harry said on the phone. "For how long?" Maria asked. "No, just for a week." "What about Anna and me?" "Tell your grandmother to come and help you." "Harry, I have no money. I need to buy diapers and formula for the baby." Maria knew that now he would start to tell her that she overfeeds her daughter, that too often changes diapers, and in general, when he was a baby, no diapers were not bought, as it was managed. But her husband, for the first time in many months, did not scream and did not begin to reproach Maria in wastefulness. "I left you some money on the shelf in the hallway. Buy what you need. Come back soon," was all Maria could say as Harry hung up the phone. Looking at the few bills her husband had left for her and her daughter, Maria wondered how to spend them properly. She would have a whole week to somehow pull on those cents. Maria called her grandmother, wanting her to come over for the time Harry would be away. "I'm sick, Maria," Maddie answered in a weak voice. "What's the matter with you?" "It is known what? Pressure. Yesterday the neighbor called an ambulance. They gave me a shot, wanted to take me to the hospital, but I refused. How can I leave you and Anna? I'll just lie down for a while, and then I'll come back. Harry's away on a business trip, and I wanted you to stay with me for a week. I'd look after you." "Come on, girl, you have to cope with Anna on your own, and then you'd have to look after me, a sick old woman." Maria was worried about her grandmother. Lately, her blood pressure was often spiking, and the old medications didn't help. It was necessary to go to the district therapist, but one grandmother could not, and Maria had no time at all. Maddie would lie down for a few days and then get back on her feet again. "As long as I live, Maria will not leave," she thought, and went to her granddaughter and great-granddaughter, carrying in a bag of rudimentary products. Grandmother knew that at home Maria's refrigerator was almost always empty. "How can Harry not see that you sit here hungry all day long? Where does he put his money?" Maddie was indignant, laying out groats, sausage, and a loaf of fresh wheat bread on the table. "He wants to build a big house so that we can live in it and bring up our children. I see what kind of educator he is. He hardly ever comes near my daughter." "He gets so tired, Grandma." Maria justified her husband. "He works a lot." "No, not the kind of husband you need," shook her head grandmother. "Where only looked my eyes when I blessed you on this marriage." "Grandmother, but Harry doesn't drink and doesn't beat me." That was the argument Maria always used to soothe herself in moments of resentment against Harry. She remembered how her drunken father had chased her mother around the apartment, how he had beaten her severely, and she had hidden in a small room with her brother. That's how it happens. Maria's mother and little brother did not know the need, never starved. The father gave money, leaving himself only for a drink. But the mother always suffered from beatings, and Maria knew from childhood, a drunken man carries danger. You need to stay away. But Harry doesn't take a drop in his mouth, even on holidays. But he's a cheapskate like no other. It's true. Your Harry doesn't drink, and that's good." Maddie rocked Anna in her arms. "You'd think with a life like that, it'd be better." "What are you saying, Grandma?" Maria was indignant at Maddie's words. "If Daddy hadn't been drinking, hadn't hurt Mommy, we'd all be together now. I never would have lost my little brother. I loved Archie so much. I still have that picture." The girl went to the shelf, where in a simple plastic frame stood the photo, discovered by her grandmother in a letter from her daughter. Maria looked sadly at her mother and little Archie on her lap. What was wrong with them now? Are they alive? What if they are in need? What if they are starving? "Don't think about that," her grandmother interrupted her. Your mother, if she's alive, won't be lost. And she certainly won't make Archie starve. It's just not the time yet. Time for what? Matey was silent for a moment, and then she handed the sleeping Anna to Marie to put her in her crib. Her husband returned from his business trip in a surprisingly good mood. He played with Anna while Marita sorted through the gift bags. There were baby clothes, even a dress, and some groceries, obviously not bought at their neighborhood store. Harry, what a beautiful dress. It's a little big, but my daughter is growing up fast. She'll be able to wear it soon. Yes, I chose it myself, my husband answered proudly. Expensive though, but it's for my daughter. There are also toys for her, look. Funny. She pulled out animals, rattles, letters on magnets. What's the alphabet for? She's too old to learn letters. She'll grow up, Maria, and we won't notice how she'll grow up. Harry smiled, and Maria was happy. She had not seen her husband in such a good mood for a long time. Besides, everything's getting more expensive, so we have to stock up. I went to the bakery and bread is $2 more expensive again. Why don't we buy a bag of flour and bake it ourselves in the oven? It'll be cheaper? I don't have time to bake. I'm with the baby all the time. Grandma will help, Harry said. By the way, have you ever had her? She did, but she's been sick a lot. Harry seemed to have missed the words. Why don't you get your daughter ready? I'll take her for a walk in the yard, and you cook something special for dinner. You've got groceries. You've got a whole bag. Maria was glad. Harry was not very happy to be around Anna, and now he was going for a walk with his daughter. She quickly dressed the baby, came down from the entrance following her husband, who rolled out the stroller. Everything will get better and live like people, she thought, looking out the window as her husband and daughter walk on the paved path. Maria picked up her cell phone and swiped her finger across the screen to look for dinner ideas on the internet. On her social media page, she saw a photo sent to her. The photo showed a smiling Harry in swim trunks and a girl in a bright pink swimsuit. They were standing under a palm tree on a beach with golden sand. Maria's heart hammered harder. What did that mean? Her husband wasn't on any business trip, but went on vacation to a resort. And who was this girl? A casual acquaintance, or was she vacationing with her? A mistress? When her husband and daughter returned from the walk, Maria undressed the baby and began to set the table. She didn't know how to bring up the fact that an explicit photo had appeared on her page. Maria set the table, sat her daughter next to her in a high chair. Her satisfied husband was eating the chop with mashed potatoes. Oh, I miss home-cooked food. Harry really didn't eat much at home, more and more at restaurants. He said he'd starve to death before he got home, so he had to eat in cafes. Do you know what this is? Maria asked, showing her husband the photo on her phone. Harry stared silently, and the girl waited for him to start explaining. But her husband didn't even think to be embarrassed or make excuses. Wow, did you really come out well? He asked his wife. Where are you and who is with you? Maria asked. What's your business? Yes, I went on vacation. Harry jumped up from the table, his voice becoming cold again. Do you know why? Because I need a vacation. I work hard to earn money for us to have a normal life. I work like an ox to make sure you don't need anything in the future. I save money on everything. Can I afford a vacation once in a while? You're not working hard, sitting at home all day. I'm with our baby, so I don't work. Maria tried to justify herself. There's no need to cover yourself with a child. Maria is already a year and a half. Send her to a nursery or let the grandmother sit with her. I alone with your appetites cannot feed you. No, look at me. I work every day, earn money, and she finds time to sit on social networks and follow me. Maria did not have time to say that she does not follow her husband, that the photo was sent to her by someone unknown, but he had already slammed the door, shouting, I'm going for a walk. I've ruined everything again, and the evening was starting out so well. Maria thought as she cleared the dirty dishes from the table. She decided that tomorrow she would go to the beauty salon to find out about getting out of maternity leave. I have no vacancies at all, indifferently looking at the former employee, who was the best nail technician a year and a half ago, said Anna. I have nowhere to take you, Maria. Maybe at least for a few hours? I have my own clients. I could work with them. It is absolutely impossible. The boss disapprovingly looked at the old suit of the girl and also noticed the lack of good makeup and faded complexion. I wanted to call you myself to write your own resignation. I don't need employees with small children. Babies are often sick. Leaving the salon, Maria ran into her old friend Natasha. "Mother, why are you here?" She was surprised. "Yes, I wanted to go back to work, but Anna suggested that I quit my job altogether. Soon they will stop paying Anna's allowance, and it will be very hard without money." "I thought you didn't need money," Natalie said, lighting a thin cigarette. "My Harvey said that Harry bought a trip to Turkey last month, but you don't look like you just come from a resort." Maria did not tell Natalia that her husband did not go on vacation with her, that she still needs money, and now she lost her job, which used to bring her a good income. In the evening, Harry asked Maria, "Did you go to the salon?" "Yes," she said as she poured tea for her husband. "When are you going to work?" "Do not take me, offer to quit," sadly replied his wife. "Well, here we are." Harry threw a spoon on the table. "You're going to sit on my neck until retirement. I feed you, dress you, pay the rent. It's all out of my pocket. It's not a long way to go with you. How much do you spend on us?" Maria tried to argue. "And you count your own, but do not meddle in my purse. I have everything thought out in my life. Everything will go to work. I'm fighting to build my own house, to vacation at resorts, to buy a car. So whatever you want, get out of it. Take a job at home. Put an ad for at-home manicures, for God's sake. Enough, I'm sick of your freeloading." Everything Harry said was hurtful to Maria. She was ready to cry from hopelessness, from self-pity, but suddenly the cell phone rang. "Maria," a neighbor spoke in an agitated voice. "Come quickly, your grandmother was taken to the hospital by ambulance." Maria quickly dressed, explaining to her husband that she had to go to the hospital. She put her daughter on his lap and ran out the door. She got home a couple hours later. "Grandmother died," Maria said quietly, anticipating her husband's questions. "A heart attack." After the funeral, Maria sat at the kitchen window, watching the sun sink behind the trees. She had lost the last person close to her. Her husband had not become her family, and lately he had become distant, constantly disappearing on business trips. On the one hand, she felt better when he wasn't home, but on the other hand, she had no money for food. If Harry did not go anywhere, then at least bought food, from which Maria cooked food. He was not going to starve himself. 6 months later, Maria came into her inheritance. Maidie's apartment had gone to her. Harry rubbed his hands together, looking at the inheritance certificate. "You know what I've decided, Maria," he said, putting his arm around his wife. "We're going to sell both apartments and start building a house. I've already looked for a plot of land. It's in the country, but it's quiet, and the air is fresh." Maria imagined a beautiful large house with an adjoining territory, where there would be a playground for Anna and a lot of flowers. But where would we live while the house was being built? She worried. "Maybe you shouldn't sell the house. You've been saving almost all your salary to start the construction. How many times have I told you to stay out of my purse? The money I'm saving, we're gonna need it. We'll need furniture for the house and a car to live in the country. And besides, it's my money. I earned it with my own labor. Shouldn't you contribute to the construction of the house?" Maria sighed heavily. She was not ready to lose her parents' and grandmother's apartment overnight. Seeing his wife's doubts, Harry changed his tone. "Don't worry, we'll rent a spacious apartment for the construction period and live there for now. But in a year we'll move into a new house. Can you imagine how good it will be for our daughter? She'll have her own yard, her own room." Harry always knew what to push. Maria would do anything if her daughter's welfare depended on it. They had sold Maidie's apartment quickly, but the house she had gotten from her parents had not found a buyer for a long time. Maria did not see the money from the sale of her grandmother's apartment. Her husband said that he put them in his account, and from there they will go to pay for the construction of the house. One evening, Harry took a suitcase out of the pantry and started packing. "Where are you going?" Maria asked in a whisper. Her daughter was sleeping in the room, and the girl was afraid to wake her up. "I'm going on a business trip." "For how long?" "A week and a half. The bosses send." Clearly, Maria thought that her husband again needed a vacation, but did not want to make a showdown. "He'll come back anyway." After such business trips, you became kind, attentive, even caring for a few days. "At least leave us some money, because we're running out of groceries. I'm also out of money on my cell phone." Harry straightened up and frowned. He seemed to be calculating something in his mind. "I don't have any extra money. It's all put away for construction." "Get a job, I told you before. You don't even need money for a cell phone. Maybe you can stop surfing social media and stalking me." But how will I be able to call you, if anything? Maria got worried. Nothing to call me when I'm on a business trip. I'll call you myself, and incoming calls on your tariff are free. Left home alone, Maria thought about how to earn money. She took a notebook and a cell and a pen, wrote a handwritten advertisement for the services of a master of nail service, at the end of which she indicated her phone number. While Anna slept, Maria went downstairs and pasted the papers on the doors of her house. When she returned, she pulled her tools out of her dresser. Orange sticks, scissors, nail clippers and scissors, tweezers, scrapers for a minimal service. That's enough. But there were very few nail polishes left. Some dried up and went to the trash. Well, nothing. A few days will last, and there maybe someone will turn to the ad, hoped Maria. But neither tomorrow, nor the day after tomorrow nobody called. Standing at the windowsill, she watered the houseplants she had brought from her grandmother's apartment. The flowers had time to wither, but care and care did their job. Fresh leaves appeared. Only plants can live on water alone, but what about Anna and me? Thought Maria. The water in the small watering can, from which she watered the flowers, ran out. Maria moved the flower pot to the coffee table and went into the bathroom to put the container under the sink. Anna was playing with her toys on the floor. Suddenly Maria heard a loud wheeze. She ran into the room. Her daughter was lying on the floor wheezing. She was desperately panting. Her body had become absorbent cotton. Maria, in a panic, grabbed the phone, began to dial the number of the ambulance. The girl remembered that she had no money on her phone, so she could not call the doctors. Not knowing what to do, the girl grabbed her suffocating daughter in her arms, ran out of the apartment without even getting dressed, and quickly went downstairs. She ran out to help, saw a car stopped in front of her driveway. "Please help," Maria shouted. "My daughter is suffocating." The driver jumped out of the car. He was a young, well-dressed guy in his 20s. "What's wrong with her?" "I don't know, she's choking," cried Maria. "Get in quickly," said the guy, and opened the back door of the car. "Tell me where to go. I'm not from around here." Maria pointed the way to the hospital, but she herself only prayed that she would be able to get the girl there in time. Anna had already stopped wheezing, almost didn't breathe. "My little one, now be patient. We will be in time and they will help you." The car stopped at the steps of the emergency room. The guy opened the car door, took the girl from Maria's hands. "Where to?" he asked, but he was already hurrying to the front door. Maria rushed after him. "Help, the child is bad. My daughter is suffocating," shouted Maria, calling for help. In a matter of seconds, the girl was put on a gurney, taken away, and Maria and the strange guy were left alone in an empty room. Being in a state of shock, the girl did not notice that there was someone else next to her. She sat down on a chair against the wall, covered her face with her hands, and cried quietly. "Calm down, everything will be all right." The strange man put his arm around her shoulders. Only now was she beginning to perceive what was happening realistically. He had helped her without even asking what had happened. Helped her without asking too much. The girl looked at the stranger with gratitude. "Thank you," she said. "Don't thank me, you're welcome." The guy replied, "You're shivering. Put on my jacket for now." He took off his outer garment and carefully covered Maria's shoulders. They sat in silence for a while. Maria couldn't understand what had happened to her daughter. All day she was calm, playing with toys. There were no signs of cold. The girl did not complain about her tummy. And suddenly, such a terrible wheeze. "How old is your girl?" suddenly asked the guy. Immersed in her thoughts, Maria completely forgot about him. "A year and 9 months," she replied. "Ah, why did you leave?" "Thank you very much for your help, but you should probably go about your business." She started to pull off the stranger's jacket, but he put it back on her shoulders with a warning motion. "Don't worry, I'm in no hurry at all. In fact, it's important for me to know what's wrong with your little girl. I'm kind of in charge of her now. To tell you the truth, I was very scared for the girl and for you. You look like that." The guy held out his hand to Marie. "I'm Archie." Maria smiled faintly and held out her hand. His palm was warm. The light shake cheered the girl up. "I was really scared. Anna is my only and favorite daughter. I don't know what will happen to me if something happens to her. Everything will be all right. There are doctors here. They will definitely help." Archie tried to reassure her. "Thank you." Maria looked into his eyes. They were the same sky blue color as her daughter's. "Are you the girl's parents?" the doctor asked. He looked about 40 years old. Maria stood up. unable to even ask what was wrong with Anna, looked at the doctor silently. "Yes, it was we who brought her," Archie answered instead of the girl. "And it's good that we brought her ourselves, instead of waiting for an ambulance. I'm afraid we wouldn't have been able to save her in time." Maria felt her legs shaking from the doctor's words. The doctor noticed her agitation and hurried to calm her down. "Everything is fine now. Don't worry so much. Your daughter has a severe allergic attack. We washed her stomach. Apparently the allergic shock was caused by a plant leaf, which the girl swallowed. Now we've given her a shot. She'll lie down for a while, and you can take her home. And for the future, try to watch what the child pulls in his mouth." Maria realized that Anna had reached for the flower she had left on the coffee table. "I'll throw it away as soon as I get home," Maria thought to herself. For 2 hours she sat in the emergency room, with the guy who had helped her out so much in a dangerous moment by her side. When Anna was carried out by a nurse, Maria jumped out of her chair and rushed to hug the little girl. But she only flapped her eyes. Tears sprang from the mother's eyes. Her Anna is alive. She's all right now. Archie drove them home, stopped the car right in front of the driveway. "I don't know how to thank you," Maria said. "And you give me some tea," he said, smiling. "I'm very thirsty for something hot." "Well, let's go." Maria headed for the entrance, thinking that she had nothing for tea. Good thing there was still some brew in the tin. "Come in," and she invited Archie in, pushing open the front door. She had left it unlocked in her haste. The guest undressed, went into the room, looking at the furnishings. In the car, Anna fell asleep. Apparently that was the effect of the medicine she had been given in the hospital. Maria tiptoed into the bedroom, put her to bed, and returned to Archie. "I'll put the kettle on now." The boy nodded in response. She returned to the room a few minutes later, carrying 2 cups of brewed tea on a tray and a sugar bowl with some sweetener still in the bottom. "I'm sorry, I don't have anything to buy you," she said guiltily and put the tray on the table. "It's all right, and let's be on a first-name basis," Archie suggested. "After all, today we saved a child, and such feats should bring us closer together." She really felt that this guy she didn't know had become very close to her in a few hours. "Come on." "Oh, come on," Maria said and laughed softly. Archie sipped from his cup and looked around. Suddenly his gaze stopped on a framed photograph that stood on the shelf next to the TV. He stood up and moved closer. "May I?" Archie asked, pointing at the picture. "Yes, of course." He sat down again, holding the picture frame with the picture of Maria, her parents, and her little brother. "Is that your family?" he asked. "Yes, only no one is around anymore," Maria replied. Suddenly the guy got up and headed for the hallway. When he came back, she opened her wallet and took out a small photograph. "Look, this is me as a child." He handed the picture to the girl. Her little brother Archie was looking at her from the picture, only he was a little older than Maria remembered him. She looked perplexed, looking at the picture and Archie, and he was smiling. "That's me. A long time ago, my mother fled abroad from this town from my father, who threatened her with a knife. My mom said he drank a lot and beat her, so she had to go into hiding. Recently I turned 20 years old, and my mother told me everything about her past. She was sick by then, cancer." Archie was silent for a while, and Maria looked at the boy in the picture and thought she was having a strange dream. She couldn't help but notice that Archie in the family photo and this boy were the same person. "I'd always knew I had a grandmother, a dad, and an older sister left in the U.S. As my mom was dying, she asked me to find my grandmother and sister Maria. So when I buried her, I came here." Archie found my grandmother's house, wanted to talk to her first, but the neighbors said that the old lady died not so long ago and the apartment is for sale. "She also told me that my sister lived in my parents' old apartment," Archie continued. "I knew the name of the town, the street, and the house number by heart, but the apartment number had slipped my mind. My grandmother's neighbor didn't know it. Then I decided that I would find my sister, even if there were 1,000 apartments in this house. I drove up to the house, and then you came running out with your daughter in your arms." Maria looked at the guy and couldn't believe it was happening to her. Was this really her brother Archie? It turns out it is, but it's so unbelievable, it's hard to believe what's happening. "I thought I'd go to all the apartments, ask around the courtyard and find my sister. I mean you." He looked at Maria with a look of warmth and joy, and she was completely speechless. The boy and the girl hugged tightly. Two relatives, separated for almost 20 years, were again next to each other. Tears flowed down their cheeks. They were tears of joy and happiness. The unexpected meeting completely changed Maria's life. All week her brother was near her, not a minute away from her and her little niece. They walked together, went shopping. Archie liked to please his sister updates, buy her baby toys and beautiful things. And when they came home, they cooked dinner together. Maria made dumplings, saying, "Our mother loved to make dumplings. She made so many of them that sometimes they didn't even fit in the freezer. Then she would take them out on the balcony. In the wintertime, there were several boards there. Brother and sister felt happy. Maria forgot that her husband would be back soon. While he was away, she talked a lot about her life, about the fact that Harry constantly reproaches her with a piece of bread, does not give her money for food. The girl did not complain, but simply answered her brother's questions and constantly tried to justify her husband. You see, he is very frugal. He wants to build us a house. That's why he saved all the money. And now we sold grandmother's apartment and put this one up for sale. Sister, with such a husband you will stay on the street." It was obvious to Archie that her husband was just fooling Maria's head to make a profit at her expense, and he was living at his own pleasure. One day Archie was suddenly going somewhere. "Are you going to be long?" my sister asked. "I don't think so," he said, buttoning his jacket. "When I get back, we'll go for a walk. The weather is great, frost and sunshine." By the time Archie returned, Maria had fed and packed Anna. They dressed warmly and went for a walk. Everyone was having fun, but Maria was worried about one question, and she finally decided to ask her brother, "Will you go away? Will I be alone again?" He looked at her carefully, hugged her and said, "And let's talk about it, only a little later. Not now." In the evening, Maria, Archie, and Anna returned home. They had a wonderful time at the entertainment center, where there were rides for the little ones, and then sat in a cafe. Opening the door to the hallway, Maria saw her husband's suitcase. "Harry's back," she said. Her husband's voice came from the room. "Maria, you? Come quickly, we need to pack." Harry went out to meet his wife and daughter. "Who's this?" "Harry, this is my brother Archie. He came from out of the country to find me. I told you I had a brother, but I didn't know where he was. Here, Archie found me." The man looked at the boy with a blank stare, as if he were nothing. "Come on and quick, we'll pack. I sold the apartment. While you live in a communal apartment, I rented a room there, and I'll move to my mom's place for the construction of our house. We'll all be cramped in a communal apartment. Hurry up, Maria, you're not worth it." And she doesn't need to hurry anywhere. Archie suddenly entered the conversation. "But you, man, you can go to your mother's house." "Shut up and mind your own business, you little brat," Harry snapped. Maria looked from her husband to her brother, not knowing what was going on. "Your husband sold the apartment under the power of attorney you signed. He had no intention of building a house, and he certainly didn't have you and your daughter in mind. I was able to find that out during my time in the city. It wasn't hard." Harry's broke as a whistle. "He doesn't have any of the savings he was telling you about. He just wanted your money like he got the money from selling our grandmother's apartment. And the day before yesterday, I bought that apartment from the realtors, and now it's mine." The guy took out a piece of paper and showed it to Maria and her husband. And then Archie opened the door and set Harry's suitcase in the stairwell. As the saying goes, get out, Archie pointed Harry's hand at the door, or for—
"You need to get married, Cindy," my friend and colleague Sarah said with a sigh, shoveling mashed potatoes into a plastic bucket. "But first, a torrid, heady affair." "Lelka makes a good point," Selena remarked. "At least the rest of your life will be normal." "Well, what did you see with that monster?" "Bruises, covered with foundation cream, and the fact that you with Billy in your arms hid in the neighborhood. Of course, the dead are either good or nothing but the truth," finished Ariana, Cindy's classmate, in a deep voice. "By the way, that's what the saying really sounds like." Cindy was organizing the leftover sausage, smoked fish, and chopped vegetables from her husband Lucy's 40th birthday memorial dinner into containers. "Oh, girls, for God's sake," the widow grinned sadly. "Barry's soul can hear everything till he's 40. And let it hear," said Selena as if she had said it. "Let him hear everything. How much have you endured from him in your lifetime? And then, what if that monster is only happy for you?" "Oh, come on," Cindy said. "What's Billy going to say? Daddy's dead, and Mommy's already got a new uncle in the house." "Please," Sarah rolled her eyes. "First of all, you haven't brought anyone home yet. Secondly, it's a step you have to take, and it's going to take time. A year from now, and no one will judge you. How old is your Billy now? 12, the widow replied with a sigh. Oh boy, let me guess. He spends his time either with his friends or on the computer, right? Well, yes, she smiled weakly. And then the girls will start, Ariana noted. And then before you know it, the guy's married. What about you? What about me? Cindy shrugged. I'll be babysitting grandchildren. It's all clear, summarized the classmate, and looking at her friends, waved her hands. She's incorrigible. She's going to follow Barry and not even know what it's like to live life to the fullest and be truly happy. Cindy, don't you want to live for yourself? I don't know, she admitted. I hadn't really thought about it. Well, maybe it's time to think about it. What's 32? Juicy, Selena said. Exactly. God, Cindy, if you want to cry for your husband, then cry and move on. I don't think he's worth it, though. He wouldn't appreciate it. Oh, guys, it's complicated. Cindy shook her head. I need to get back on track. Then I can think about myself. The friends looked at each other with a faint glance. Somehow they didn't believe that would be the case. So far they had heard only words. That was just the way this woman was. Cindy thought of others first, and only then of herself. She was also afraid of change. But deep down, somewhere in the bottom of her heart, Cindy knew her friends were right. And change had already come, so maybe. Selena said when all the food and drinks had been put away, and you lie down and rest, you're exhausted. Yes, I will, nodded Cindy. Thanks, girls. After she had seen her friends off, she lay down on the bed, but she didn't feel like sleeping. Cindy sank into her memories. Barry and Cindy had started dating when she was a freshman in medical school. There probably wasn't a student in the entire college who hadn't noticed the beautiful blue-eyed brunette with the chiseled figure. And classmate Anthony was in love with her. But one of the first college beauties made a choice outside the institution, and he, to put it mildly, puzzled everyone who knew her. Cindy's lover, the leader of the local Gopniks, worked as a handyman in some Sharashkana office one day. The hero of her novel wasn't handsome, and he wasn't fearful either. But with one look at Barry, it wasn't hard to realize that his intelligence was in trouble. The guy wore tracksuits, shaved his head, and despised perfume. A man should smell like a man, he told his subordinates. Having finished 9 grades with a squeak, Barry decided that was enough. He considered further education a waste of time and called all students slackers, squandering their parents' money. A real man should earn money, not sit behind a desk, Barry cut off. I finished school, I can read, I can write, I can count money. What else do you need? When Cindy timidly stammered about the fact that with education more chances to get a good job, the lover only condescendingly flicked the girl on the nose and said, "Much you understand. All this reasoning slobbering and mama's boys. And a real tough guy will not waste time on some kind of study." Barry was contemptuous of such things as candy bouquet period, modest but nice gifts, Summer's kind not on business, but just because a man missed another, as he put it, callow tenderness. And I am not a heifer, he told his beloved. I am a concrete man, standing firmly on his feet. When Cindy realized that romance was out of the question, she wasn't upset. And really, what was the point of all this? After all, she had a real tough guy by her side, and everything else was nothing. However, it was not only in the disregard for education and lack of attention to the girl. Much scarier was another thing. From time to time, Barry raised his hand to Cindy, humiliated her in public, and told his friends that he was doing it for educational purposes. When the friends found out about it, they were horrified. Love is evil, of course, but still. "Cindy, you're an interesting and educated girl," her friend and classmate Ariana reprimanded her. "Well, what the hell do you want with that roughneck? And he has his hands all over you. With your smarts and looks, you could get a guy that everyone would be jealous of." "It's Barry I want," Cindy said stubbornly. "I love him. He's great. He just needs to be understood. And anyway, it's our relationship." "What kind of relationship is that?" exclaimed her friend. "If he lets himself raise his hand to you now, what will happen if you, God forbid, get married?" "Why, God forbid?" the girl asked with a grin. "We'll get married anyway, and everything will be fine." "No, you're definitely zombified," Ariana summarized, and for the sake of convincing, she added, "It's only going to get worse." The two friends had a big fight and didn't speak to each other until they graduated from high school. Then their paths parted for some time. Angelica, the girl's mother, also shook her head in bewilderment. "Cindy, you're beautiful," she said, putting ointment on her daughter's black eye. "Aren't there any decent guys in college?" "Probably there are," shrugged the girl in love. "But I don't like anyone. They're ponytails and bob, yuck, and they're all..." Wife and mother tried her best. Betty had two older children, daughter Veronica and son Arnold. Both of them already had families of their own. Now it was up to Barry. "He's a good kid, just a hothead," Betty advertised to her troublemaking offspring. "Barry just needs a woman to steer him in the right direction, and he'll be different in no time. Tame and domestic." Cindy befriended Betty, not even realizing that the cunning woman was using the naive girl for her own purposes. But it was clear to those around her. "Wake up." Angelica shook her hands in response to the reproach that her aunt understood her better than her own mother. She sleeps and sees how she could get her treasure and send her away from home. Well, and in your eyes, she wants to seem like a cool democratic aunt. Why? It's convenient to be kind at other people's expense. But where will her kindness go when it comes to business? "That's not true." Cindy said no. "Aunt Betty's a good person." "Aunt Betty's a phony," the mother said, lamenting how blinded her daughter's eyes were. "It's all love." Harvey, Cindy's father, threatened to beat up his daughter's beau, but his wife only sighed and said, "It's no use. It's no use." "But we got to do something," he exclaimed. "What, Harvey, what?" "Until Cindy realizes what she's in for, nothing will change. In our situation, only time will make things right." And it has. Not the way Cindy's parents expected. One day, Angelica got a call from Betty saying they needed to talk. "About what?" the girl's mother asked calmly, but a bad feeling had already taken hold of her. "Let's not talk on the phone," replied the parent of the hated Barry. "Could you and Harvey come over at 7 o'clock? "Well, all right." With Harvey, the poor woman pondered what that meant, but as it was, only one thought came to mind, and it was not a happy one. "All right. Why guess in vain?" she finally decided. Angelica's worst fears were realized. When she and Harvey arrived at the Wesleys, the young ones were informed that Cindy was already 12 weeks pregnant. Angelica fearfully covered her mouth with the palm of her hand, and Betty said, "Tomorrow our babies are on their way to apply." "Oh my God," Angelica exclaimed. "That's what I was afraid of." I couldn't tell from the look on Harvey's face that he was excited about the prospect of becoming a father-in-law either. At least not for the next few years, and not to this man. "What's wrong with that?" Betty went on the offensive. "You're marrying your daughter to a man from a respectable family. He doesn't mind marrying. Everything's honorable, as it should be among decent people." "You're the decent one?" thought Angelique, but she said nothing. Only a scandal was not enough. "He works," continued the loving mother. "The family will be able to provide." "Of course I can," Barry said. "I'm a normal man. I understand." "A normal man would never lay a hand on a woman," Harvey pointed out with an angry glare. "He'll change," Betty said, poking her son in the side with her elbow. "I'll change," he repeated obediently. "Yes, but studying," the mother-in-law whispered. "What about school?" Betty snorted. "No one suggests dropping out of school." "Really?" Angelica sarcastically exclaimed and turned to her daughter. "Do you realize that your husband will not let you study?" You will go on sabbatical leave, and something tells me that you will not come out of it. She will be transferred to the correspondence department, triumphantly declared the future sister-in-law. Remembering that, except for 9 grades of secondary school, Betty had not received any education, Angelica grinned. Otherwise, she would have known that correspondence courses are not available for every specialty, and it certainly does not apply to medicine. I wonder how it is possible to study medicine by correspondence. Angelica asked her daughter, "Why don't you say something?" Enlighten Aunt Betty. Cindy sat with her head down. "I'm not going to go into academia at all," she said. "I'm going to go to classes and take care of the baby." "Oh, you're a sweetheart." Her mother shook her hands. "And how do you imagine it? Who's going to take care of the baby while you're at school?" "I, as you know, work." "Then you can work all you want," Betty said. "I'll take care of the baby." Angelica could hardly believe it, but being a smart woman, she preferred not to say anything. What was the use of letting her stilettos go? It would only turn her daughter against herself. Cindy needed a mother's support right now. It was clear that nothing good would come out of this marriage, but why kill the girl? It's wiser to save your strength for the future, and it will come in handy. "I see that you have already decided everything," said Angelica. The woman had to do her best to keep her voice from sounding doomed, and she seemed to have succeeded. "Well, Cindy, you can always count on Daddy and me." "Yes, daughter," Harvey nodded. "We'll always be there for you." "Well, that's different," said Betty in a satisfied voice, and the future in-laws agreed to meet over the weekend to discuss the details of the upcoming marriage and to celebrate the engagement. And Mom was right, wasn't she? And so was everyone else. How many times had Cindy said that phrase to herself? 100, 1,000, or more? Alas, after the wedding, her life was not for the better. The bride's parents had insisted on celebrating the marriage in a cafe, but Betty had snorted dismissively. Why spend money when you can leave it to the young people to live on? A wedding can be celebrated at home. That's the way it's been done for centuries. The first day was celebrated at the groom's house, the second at the bride's house. When Cindy learned that the wedding party would be held at home, she was disappointed, but she didn't let on. Maybe it's for the best, she thought. After all, I'm pregnant, and I don't really need a noisy celebration in a pub. The girl realized that she was talking herself into it. After all, the wedding, which is a lot of young people, cannot be quiet and rank. But the main thing is that we love each other, Cindy summed up, and the argument seemed to her quite weighty. Cindy's health left much to be desired, and the cheapest and not too elegant dress, bought by Valerie, emphasized her interesting position. The happy groom now and then unceremoniously and without a hint of tenderness to the future baby grabbed Cindy's belly, and at the same time looked proudly and meaningfully at his friends. "Look at me, I'm an eagle." Cindy was terribly unpleasant, but then she wrote it all off to nervousness, which is normal for a bride who is pregnant. The happy newlywed had been drinking himself to shreds and behaving outrageously. Barry squeezed the bride, and she, instead of making a remark to her new husband, smiled strangely, as if begging the guests to be more lenient. He kissed the lips of all the women present, sprinkling them with thick booze. And when the boyfriend of Elizabeth, Cindy's college friend, said that it was wrong to do that, he exclaimed indignantly, "Do you know who I am?" "I warned you," the young man said with an undercurrent of menace and walked away, not wanting the conflict. At the end of the evening, the newlywed climbed up on the table, took off his jacket and threw it on the floor, waving it vigorously in the air. "I married an awesome hottie today," he shouted. "I did it. I'm the coolest alpha male ever. Yo ho 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 whoa." His friends whistled back so encouragingly that the guests' ears popped. Cindy wanted to cry. Barry, either accidentally or in a fit of emotion, kicked a vase of Olivier. The salad instantly landed on his father-in-law's new suit, who was standing nearby. Harvey's face turned purple with anger, but not to spoil his daughter's holiday. Though what was going on looked less like a party than anything else in the world. The father of the bride looked at Angelica and realized that his wife had obviously thought the same thing. This was not how they had envisioned their only daughter's wedding. Cindy looked at her parents and looked down at them. "Dreaming, you idiot, of a beautiful wedding." She mocked herself, enjoyed it. The second day of the wedding, according to tradition, which so honored Betty, celebrated in the apartment of the bride's parents. After the party, the guests took a stroll through the city. The bridegroom had done well here too. He walked with Cindy in his arms and shouted obscenities to the approving cackling of his gopnik friends. "It's nothing," Betty said soothingly. From now on, the mother-in-law would take a moment to make fun of him and calm down. "It's a wedding after all." "Yes," the daughter-in-law nodded with a forced smile. "I understand." She wanted so much to believe that what Betty had said was true and that everything would be all right. But just as Ariana, with whom they'd already reconciled, had predicted, things had only gotten worse. A friend was also present at the wedding and was shocked. The sacramental phrase, "I warned you," remained unspoken. It was more important to support the friend who was already having a hard time. On Monday evening, when Barry had recovered from his hangover, the young couple went to look at their new home. They were to live in a private house on the outskirts of town. As the new husband explained to Cindy, his late grandmother used to live there. "How do you like it here?" Barry asked. The young wife didn't know what to say. The impressive layer of dust and numerous cobwebs, to put it mildly, did not inspire enthusiasm. "Well, it's okay," Cindy replied hesitantly. "I don't get it," the husband said with a barely perceptible but still threatening tone. "What's wrong with you? It's not like you're a lady. You can clean, wash, and all that." "But won't you help me?" she asked confusedly. "Listen," Barry answered carelessly, "it's your woman's business. My mom handled everything on her own." Yeah, I think that was the first time Cindy had ever thought unflatteringly of her mother-in-law. She was especially good at giving birth like a wind-up. At this point, Cindy feared her hubby might beat her. Judging by the look on Lucy's face, that was exactly what he intended to do. At least, that's what he was thinking of doing. Cindy knew the tone and the stare all too well, so she prudently decided to stay out of it. "Well then, I'll do it too," she said, trying to sound cheerful. "What was I saying?" Barry said in a patronizing tone. "No, of course I'll help you move cabinets, beds. I'm not a complete moron. I realize you need to keep our son safe." "Why a son?" the young woman asked with a smile. "What if we have a girl?" "Real men are born only sons," condescendingly said the husband. "That's it. I've shown you the work to be done." When they got back to the Weasley's house, Betty asked her daughter-in-law, "How do you like the house?" "It's a good house," Cindy nodded discreetly. "Oh my," her mother-in-law said smugly, "you'll have your own place. Imagine what would happen if you married some college kid." The daughter-in-law only shrugged her shoulders. "That's right, nothing good," Betty summed up in her favorite triumphant tone. "We be living in rented apartments, and with us everything will be fine. And the main thing is that Valerka loves you very much." Who knows, maybe Valerka really loved his wife, but it seems he kept it carefully hidden. A month without abuse seemed like a fairy tale to Cindy, except that every fairy tale, even the longest one, comes to an end sooner or later. One day, Cindy was late for college. She was studying for the winter session and had to spend a lot of time in the library. "What the hell's a winter session?" Barry snapped at her. "There's nothing to eat at home, and she's in libraries." "I made a whole pot of borscht yesterday," Cindy said. Also, a powerful blow to the forehead stopped her from finishing. The young woman didn't even realize what it was. She just felt a shower of sparks come out of her eyes. And when Cindy blinked, she saw her husband's angry face. "More?" he asked, frighteningly calm. "No? Then go ahead and make me something quick." Cindy made scrambled eggs with lard, toast, and herbs. Barry, after eating his supper, was visibly relieved. "Are you offended?" he asked conciliatingly. "You shouldn't be. You'll thank me for guiding you to the right path." It was only as he finished his admonition that Barry remembered that his pregnant wife hadn't had dinner. "Look, Cindy, I ate all of it, okay?" he asked. "Well, you better make yourself something. You gotta eat well and all that." "Nothing. I'm fine," Cindy assured him. "Oh, all right then." Barry muttered to himself and grabbed a bottle of beer from the refrigerator and went to watch TV. With a sigh, the pregnant wife took out bread, eggs, and a bunch of greens. After a little thought, Cindy decided to add some lard. Cindy's pregnancy was not easy, and in the 6th month, she took a leave of absence and went into labor. "What's the news?" Barry exclaimed when he heard about the hospitalization. "The news is that I'm in danger of miscarrying," Cindy replied calmly. In such cases, they usually put you in the hospital. A threatened miscarriage? My husband asked incredulously. Really? That's like when the baby isn't born, right? Yes, the mother-to-be answered with a sigh and smiled involuntarily. When Barry talked about the future baby, he looked so touching that Cindy forgot about the main family problem. Well then, of course, Barry nodded. Go to your preservation or wherever. I want a healthy son. He'll be born healthy, Cindy smiled again. Watch me, my husband threatened, either jokingly or seriously. The month in the hospital was another favorable period in the young woman's life. Between the honeymoon and the hospital stay, Cindy truly realized how defenseless she was to her husband. Barry could get mad over the most insignificant thing, like not enough soup or too long, in his opinion, talking on the phone. And he didn't care if his mother called, let alone his friends. In moments of anger, the husband went on a rampage. In addition to violence, he used the most vile and disgusting words Barry could think of, and she would endure it without complaint. Cindy tried to tell her mother-in-law, but she quickly shut her down. No, said Betty. You've got your own family now, so you're on your own. You saw what you were buying. That's when Cindy realized how right her mother had been about her mother-in-law and everything else. It was obvious that Betty's promise to take care of the baby while Cindy was at school wasn't worth a dime. So it looked like the sabbatical was going to be a long one, if school doesn't just fall through the cracks, and something told me it would. When a tired, exhausted, and frightened Cindy arrived at the hospital, the doctor had no trouble determining what was going on in her family. The multicolored bruises all over her body were more eloquent than any words. Maria, the attending physician, examined Cindy, and as she dressed and was about to leave the exam room, the woman asked sympathetically, "This is not my case, but why don't you go to court or at least to the police? For what do you put up with the abuse of yourself and your future child? Do you even realize that an unhealthy family environment can affect the psyche of the unborn child? If you don't want to think about yourself, think about the baby." Cindy cried bitterly. Now, calm down," the kind woman said quietly, hugging her. "What do you think you're doing, crying? You mustn't worry. I will no longer embarrass," whispered the future mother. "I'll try." "You'll do your best," Maria said with feigned severity. That's it, my good girl. Next." 2 weeks later, Cindy was discharged. Her parents picked her up from the hospital. "Why don't we go back to our place?" Angelica suggested it. Though tempted, Cindy declined. But at home, she was surprised to find an unkempt girl. It seemed she lived on the next street over. "Oh," the girl squeaked when she saw Cindy. The young woman jumped out of the house and ran for her life. She walked at a brisk pace, greedily breathing in the February, almost spring air, while tears covered everything around her. Cindy wanted to call her parents, but changed her mind. No need to upset them. She reached the small public garden and sank down tiredly on a bench. Her cell phone rang. "Ariana." "Hello." No matter how hard Cindy tried to hold back her tears, her friend understood. "Cindy, are you crying? What's wrong?" "Cindy, don't be silent," Ariana persisted. Barry what? "Are you home now or are you still in the hospital?" "Aya." Tears were getting in the way of my speech. I'm home," Cindy sobbed. "I mean, not really." "Cindy, I don't understand you," Ariana said in desperation. "Where are you?" "In the public garden, not far from the house." "Why are you there?" the classmate asked. "It's not May." When Cindy finally managed to pull herself together and told her friend what had happened, she immediately said, "Okay, call a cab and come to my place. I'll pay for it." "Oh, Cindy, I don't know," Ariana said an hour later when they were having tea. "I'd leave if I were you." "Why?" "It's an option, by the way. Your parents are good, and they'll help you raise your child." "Well, nothing good awaits you. Not only does he have his hands out, but he brings all sorts of weirdos into the house. God forbid she bring in some kind of disease." Cindy sighed. Easy to say, but hard to do. Though it seemed easy to pack her things, move back to her parents' house, and then file for divorce. But now she realized that domestic tyrants, it turns out, are excellent psychologists. They morally pressurize their victims, skillfully using both the stick That is intimidation and threats and carrot. Under the carrot should be understood as apologies and excuses. Say, I was tired, it was a hard day. When Barry apologized, he looked like a child who had done something wrong. His spouse's remorse seemed sincere, and Cindy felt sorry for him. Who's going to feel sorry for you? An inner voice whispered, certainly not him. There was nothing to say, but Cindy didn't do anything about it. Her parents would help, of course, she sighed. Yeah, maybe, but I'd hate to involve them, and frankly, I'm afraid of change. Well, as you know, Ariana shook her head and taking her friend's hand in hers added, but know that the doors of our apartment are always open to you. I know, Cindy said quietly, a tear rolling down her cheek. Thank you. Okay, you don't have to cry. Maybe you want to sleep. I'm always sleepy now, she said with a smile. Then go to bed, Ariana said and put her arm around her shoulders and took her to her room. Sleep is a great medicine in general, and tonight Mom promised to make fish pie. It'd be delicious. That afternoon, Cindy slept over at a classmate's house, and the next morning, her husband showed up. Barry apologized profusely and said they were made for each other. Eventually, Cindy went home with her husband. Billy was born on April 12th, Cosmonauts Day. He's gonna be an astronaut, laughed Cindy's parents, and the newly minted young father said, holding the warm blue bundle in his hands. I'll make a real man out of him. You and me, and we'll make such a mess. Betty smiled proudly. It seemed that this woman was about to swell with pride and burst like a soap bubble. Much to Cindy's displeasure, the gang of thugs was also here. Just like at the wedding, they made vulgar remarks, ignoring the staff. And when a doctor reprimanded them, one of the thugs responded, "It's okay, Dad." Cindy's parents smiled, but her daughter realized how much effort it had cost them. Congratulations, said Angelica, handing the young parents a branded bag with rattles and a large package of diapers. Thank you, mother-in-law, cheerfully answered Barry. God forbid it's not the last time. God forbid. Angelica thought with a shudder. There's only one to raise, with a father like that. Further family life of the couple Gurianov developed according to the scenario, which Angelica feared. No, for the first month everything was fine. Barry found a part-time job, and all the money he earned gave his wife, leaving himself a trifle for lunch. He didn't drink, and after work he'd rush home and coo over Billy. Kid, Barry said fondly, man. The young mother's heart sank with emotion, and in her soul a time-ed sprout of Cindy for happiness was budding. In a month's time the spouse was the same. He began again to raise his hand against his wife. The most frequent cause for abuse was the baby's crying. Shut him up, Barry said irritably. Cindy would soothe, and if he wouldn't shut up, her husband would tastefully proceed. What kind of mother are you if you can't quiet the baby, he said. Studying, as Cindy's mother and then Cindy herself had expected, was a dead end. 2 years had passed and it was time to take a sabbatical. Barry strongly resisted. A woman's place is at home with a baby and a stove. He cut him off. But I have to finish my studies, Cindy pointed out, and Billy could go to daycare. But there was no room at the daycare center, and the first in line were children 3 and older. Angelica needed to finish her seniority. No, well, if necessary, I'll think of something, said the mother. No, Mom, you don't have to, Cindy said. No. I'm the one who made this mess. I'm the one who's got to think. Well, what about your mother-in-law? Dad asked. I remember her beating her chest, saying she'd babysit the baby. And the mother-in-law is deflated, the young woman said with a wry grin. Eventually, Cindy was expelled for not starting classes. The young mother was worried, but her husband reassured her. In his own way, of course. What are you worrying about? Why does a woman need an education? Barry ranted. Cindy sighed. It was useless to explain to a man who had decided not to burden himself with education that sooner or later it would come back to bite him in the ass. She recalled how she had been disappointed that she had not gotten into medical school after high school and had been advised to apply to college. And that's where Cindy got lucky. After medical school, she planned to try again to get into college. Guy, how many plans and ambitions were there? The young woman thought, and she wanted to howl with self-pity. Come on, everything is fine, cheerfully said the husband, clumsily kissing his wife on the forehead. I'll go to the boys. That's it. I'm gone. And he was gone. God, I'm such an idiot, thought Cindy once again. It looked like the dream of becoming a doctor would have to be buried under the rubble of routine and happiness. And was there ever any happiness? A year later, Billy went to kindergarten, and Harvey and Angelica suggested that their daughter enroll in a paid secretarial course. After a short consideration, Cindy agreed. As a married woman, she was ashamed to accept material help from her parents, but there was no way out. With the pennies Barry received in the children's allowance, she couldn't do much with it. But Cindy would get a job and the money would be easier to come by. When Barry found out his wife had enrolled in the course, he made a big fuss. "You want to be a secretary?" he yelled. "You think I don't know what you're thinking?" "I don't know what you're talking about," Cindy said in a trembling voice. "You know what you mean." Her husband raged and swung at her. "Don't hit mommy," Billy shouted bravely, and that made the tyrant even more angry. "You little puppy," he exclaimed indignantly. "I'll have you now." But Cindy nimbly picked her son up and ran outside. "I won't let anyone hurt you," she said, crying, and walked on her way. It's almost like that, but with Billy under my heart. Cindy thought bitterly as she remembered her return from the hospital. "How far are we going?" Cindy heard a vaguely familiar woman's voice and, realizing that she had almost knocked the young woman down, hurried to apologize. "It's okay, it's no big deal," the woman smiled. "How far are we in a hurry?" "No reason," she said, embarrassed. "Daddy wanted to hit mommy and I didn't let him, like an adult," Billy replied. "Good girl, mommy's protector is growing up," replied the woman and suddenly commanded, "Come on, let's go to me. By the way, let's get acquainted. My name is Selena." "Cindy," the young woman introduced herself with a smile. "And my son's name is Billy." "That's a good name," Selena said approvingly. "And he's a great kid. Come on, let's go, let's go." Selena lived in the alley that led to the end of their street. "I haven't seen you around here before," Cindy said thoughtfully. "Maybe not," nodded the new acquaintance. "I've been here a little over a month. My grandmother was buried 6 months ago, so I took the inheritance. There's that house." "Oh yes," Cindy nodded, remembering the old woman who used to live here. "I think her name was Martha and she hadn't been out of the house lately." "Do you often run away from your husband like that?" Selena asked, when the rest of the apple pie was eaten and the tea was drunk. "Occasionally," Cindy replied evasively. "And then apologies, reconciliation, a temporary lull, and then it's back to normal," she sighed. "I know the story." "Have you had that happen to you?" she asked in surprise. Looking at the cheerful, companionable woman, Cindy couldn't believe she had the same problems. "You," Selena corrected with a smile. "No, I've been spared, but my cousin had." "She did?" "Yes, but thank God, it's all behind her now. She's remarried now, and her new husband loves her to pieces." "How did she do it?" "How?" Selena shrugged. "One day Maria packed up her things, said she was tired of being patient, and gave the brawler a goodbye." "That's a lot to take in," Cindy said sadly. "So I guess I'm a sucker. It's in your hands." And that was the day Cindy made a new friend. Selena offered to let her and her son spend the night, and they stayed. And then she came home, apologizing and swearing, "I won't hurt you." And I didn't. But after a month, it was back to normal. Cindy was taking secretarial classes, and Barry suspected her of all sins. Whenever Cindy was late, her husband would get hysterical. She knew she had to make a change, but she was still afraid of change. "What are you afraid of?" Ariana wondered. "You have to work somewhere, one way or another. Who's going to pay your pension? Barry?" After graduating, Cindy took a job as a secretary at the school. Oddly enough, Barry was cool about it. Cindy assumed that her husband thought the school was a place where no one would infringe on her honor, and she was not far from the truth. In Barry's mind, it was a place where his wife wouldn't give him the horns. It was high school. At her new job, she made friends with Sarah, a cheerful, pretty, black-eyed brunette with a short, stylish haircut. They were the same age, so they hit it off quickly. Sarah taught computer science. When Sarah told her that she was graduating from Teachers College this year, Cindy suddenly felt sad. Now she could finish college and try her luck at medical school. What's the problem? Sarah wondered. "How old are you?" "Yeah, And what would I have to live on while I was in school? Cindy grinned. Sadly, it looked like that train had left. Oh, never say never. Her coworker shook her head with a smile. When Billy went to first grade, Barry was offered a job as a trucker for a logistics company that was gaining momentum. Why, he told his wife over dinner, I got the right category. And they promised good money. That's great, Cindy smiled. The couple was in a quiet period now, and looking at them, no one would have guessed the problems in the family. Cindy tried to remember the good times and sadly recognized that they were sadly few. However, Lucy's successful employment with a private logistics company had been one of the brightest and most positive moments. And it was not only, and not so much about money, the employer hadn't cheated. Barry was really starting to make a decent living. But besides that, Cindy saw another plus. Sometimes her husband would be away for a week or even a month. Quite often, Barry would come back for a day or two, and then he'd be off again. He just didn't have time for abuse. In the absence of her husband, Cindy, though she was afraid to admit it even to herself, rested her soul. She looked better, began to go out with her friends to caves, shopping, or to the sauna. Son also pleased. The woman recalled with horror how nervous and withdrawn was Billy because of their scandals. But now he became calmer, more collected, and studied better at school. Feeling that life seemed to be getting better, Cindy cheered up. But the joy was premature. One day, returning from another long voyage, Barry mumbled, "We're talking." "I'm listening," nodded his wife warily. From Barry's tone, the conversation was unlikely to be pleasant. Cindy was afraid to even think about continuing it. "Listen to me," he said sharply. "If I find out you're seeing someone, I'll blow your head off and his, you know me." Cindy did. "Except it'd be nice to know what this is all about, wouldn't it? And don't give me the sheep eyes," Barry shouted. "What's the matter?" the wife exclaimed in bewilderment. "What the hell were you doing in the sauna?" he asked in a sly but unkind tone. "In the sauna?" Cindy repeated the question. "In the sauna and the sauna. What do you do in a sauna?" Cindy shrugged her shoulders. "Warming up, steaming, swimming in the pool." Barry noticed that she was different, more self-confident or something. She looked different too. Fresher, better looking, more rested. He didn't like it and had an interesting thought. "There's someone else," Barry thought angrily. "I better find out who. Then we'll all be in trouble." "Warming, steaming, swimming," he repeated mockingly. "That's it. What else do you want to know?" Cindy asked indifferently. "Don't play dumb with me," he yelled. "You want to embarrass me? When my husband walks out the door, you go to the saunas? You? Wife? Mother?" Barry. She was astonished to realize that her husband suspected her of infidelity. "What makes you think I'm cheating on you?" "I was just told that you were in the sauna," Barry said in a confused voice, which was amusing. "So?" Cindy snorted. "Do you think they only do, naughty things in the sauna?" "Well," he said, and his wife grinned mentally. "I guess this is the kind of thing where they say the hat on the thief is on fire." It was strange that Barry didn't fight this time. "It wasn't weird," Sarah said thoughtfully when Cindy told her co-worker about it. "It's just that you're different now. You're prettier and, more importantly, more confident, so he didn't dare hit you. And you know what? Your abuser is afraid of losing you." Cindy was glad to hear that. Maybe there was a holiday coming up on her street too. Cindy returned from her lunch break and was taking her desk when she received a call from an unfamiliar number. "Hello, we don't know your name," said the caller. "Are you Barry's wife?" "Yes, that's correct," answered Cindy. "I'm sorry, but your husband was killed in a car accident. Would you be able to come down for a lineup?" "Yes, of course," she replied, and suddenly a pair of golden red goosebumps flickered in front of her eyes. Must be the pressure. Cindy grimaced and rubbed her temples. The principal came into the waiting room. "Are you all right?" Boris Mikhailovich asked, looking at her intently. "Yes, no, my husband died." At her husband's funeral, Cindy had mixed feelings. She was truly sorry for Lucy, who had died in the prime of life, but listening to herself, she realized that she did not feel deep sorrow as befitted a widow. "Apparently my love has burned out," the widow decided. Cindy tried to cry at least for the sake of decency, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't squeeze out a tear. She looked at her son. Billy was as serious as ever, and he wasn't crying either. The mother-in-law walked up to them. If Cindy hadn't known it was her, she never would have believed it. Betty was graying, her face was completely white, and there were deep creases in the corners of her mouth. "How are you?" Cindy asked sympathetically, intending to hug Betty. "She's still asking." Her mother-in-law roared, her voice sounding frightening. "Aren't you ashamed of yourself? You're the one who drove him into the coffin." "What are you talking about?" Cindy was stunned. "I'm telling you what I know. If it wasn't for you, he wouldn't have gotten that damn job. You're the one who couldn't get enough money. Damn you! Damn you! Damn you!" screamed the inconsolable mother. Billy blocked his mother with himself and said bravely, "It's not true." "Mom, calm down, son," Arnold reassured Betty. "Cindy, for God's sake, I'm sorry. You realize?" "Yes, of course," she nodded. "Of course I do." Arnold and some other guy took the sobbing woman away, and Cindy clung to Pasha and whispered, "My protector." And then she let the tears flow. A couple days later, Cindy called Betty. "Cindy," she said in a muffled voice, "I'm sorry. I didn't know what I was saying. And I'm sorry about Barry too. He's been a pain in the ass." "Oh no," my sister-in-law exclaimed. "He who remembers old times is the one who's out of sight." "You're kind," sighed Betty. "I, Nadenka, here's something else to call. I've been thinking, let's all come to my place for 9 days." "Okay," agreed Cindy. "I'll talk to the girls. They'll help with dinner." "That'd be great. Thank you, daughter." The 40th birthday party was at the house where the young Guryanovs lived. "Daughter," said Betty when the women were alone, "you can live in this house as long as you want. I bequeath it to my granddaughter. It's a place to live." "Thank you, Betty," Cindy replied, and the women hugged. "Don't forget the old woman," she smiled sadly. Of course, smiled back at her sister-in-law and another. "If you need help, don't hesitate. We're not strangers after all." "Too bad for her," she said with a sigh to Ariana, Sarah, and Celine, who had volunteered to help clear the table. "That's for sure," Ariana nodded. "No one would wish to bury their own child, but one must move on with one's life. Your life, for example, you might say is just beginning." Cindy could see where her friend was going. Well, it's about to start. As the memories lulled her to sleep, Cindy fell asleep. When she woke up at 6 in the morning without an alarm clock, she felt an unprecedented rush of energy. She was no longer afraid of change. With a sweet stretch, Cindy got out of bed without hurrying. Today, she wanted to make breakfast for herself and her son. Not scrambled eggs or sandwiches, but something special. Playfully finishing her breakfast, Cindy began to dress up. When Billy awoke to the appetizing smells, his mother was already in full dress. "Mom, you look so pretty today," exclaimed the son. Cindy was very pleased to receive a compliment from her son. But the woman suddenly realized with horror that she didn't know how to respond. "I just had a good night's sleep," she smiled. "Well, yes," Billy nodded. "You went to bed early last night. I got in at 9, and you were already asleep." "Yes," nodded his mother in response. "I've been so tired lately. I'm exhausted. I'm so sleepy." "Well, let's have breakfast, or you'll be late for school. I fried some meat dumplings, and here's some stuffed tomatoes." That's the theme. We're having a royal breakfast today." "You bet. Eat up, my good man." Cindy was on her way home from work, and as she passed the office of the medical center, she saw an ad that read, "Administrator wanted." Obeying a sudden impulse, the young woman determinedly pulled the door open. What a laugh, she thought. Unfinished medical school with 10 years experience as a school secretary. That's quite the track record. Cindy was about to turn around and walk away when a handsome man in his 40s, wearing an impeccably tailored dark gray suit, inexplicably appeared next to her. "What do you want?" he asked, smiling affably. No, I think I'll go," Cindy blurted out. "You're here about something, but you're leaving already," the man laughed. "Well, no, I'm not letting you go now that you're here. I take it you're here about the job," the man asked, the HR manager, whose name was Max. "Ah, been there, done that." "Well, yes," Cindy decided. "Why did you choose our company?" "I saw the ad and came." She wanted to blurt out, but something told her she shouldn't answer that way. "I dreamed of becoming a doctor since childhood. But it didn't work out. The young woman replied and was embarrassed. Well, it's like that. I probably don't fit you. I'll go. I'm talking nonsense here. Well, why nonsense? Objected her manager. Go on. I'm very interested. So why didn't it work out? And then Cindy, completely out of the blue, told a complete stranger her life story. She told him everything without holding anything back. That's what happens, Max said thoughtfully. At first it's all darkness, and then there it is, the light at the end of the tunnel, when you don't expect it. It's not an easy story, but I guess it was meant to be. Yeah, I guess so. You know, Cindy, you'd have a chance to realize your dream here. The man smiled slyly. You do? I do. We're just starting a program at the center where you can go to medical school. You will receive a stipend of 2 minimum wages. Interesting. Cindy felt dizzy and out of breath. She could feel it in her bones. This was it. Very much, sighed Cindy. So how about we fill out an application for training? But of course, if you're interested in the receptionist position, then. As if in a dream, she filled out the form and handed it to her manager. Uh-huh. Max nodded, running his eyes over her. If you're approved, we'll call you within the next 2 days. But do I have a chance? Cindy asked breathlessly. There's always a chance, laughed the office owner. But with a name like that, I'd certainly hope for the best. Well, let's hope for the best, she smiled. Goodbye. Goodbye. What followed was more like a fairy tale. The next day, Cindy got a call from her manager. Cindy, I have great news for you. He announced triumphantly. You've been accepted into medical school. Congratulations. I don't believe it, whispered the shop woman and pinched her ear. God, am I really awake? You're not kidding me, are you? No, pranking is not our job, Max said cheerfully. From the 1st of August, the preparatory courses will begin. By that time, you need to provide the following documents. Write it down. After talking to her manager, Cindy fell onto the bed and laughed out loud. She suddenly felt like sharing the news. A dog barked in the yard. Here comes the Sonny, she rejoiced. Mom, how about some food? Billy asked. I'm going to heat up the pilaf now, his mother announced solemnly. And while it's warming up, I've got something to tell you. It's good, I hope. Very. So you and I are both students now. Billy laughed as he ate the pilaf. Well, it turns out we are, Cindy said. I did the math. And it turns out that when you graduate, I'll be a senior. That's funny, my son cheered. Her friends all said it was something to celebrate. I'm all for it, she assured him. I look forward to seeing you all at my place. We'll celebrate the beginning of my new life. Cindy couldn't remember a time when she'd been in such high spirits. She had enough energy for 10 people. Cindy was enjoying her studies unparalleled, and at the end of the first session, she was awarded an increased scholarship. It was like a second win for this woman who had suffered. Life was moving on, and now Cindy could say with certainty that she was doing well. Cindy had a wonderful son, loving and understanding parents, and loyal friends ready to help at any time of the day or night. And she also had a new meaning in life, which seemed to have been irrevocably lost. It was definitely worth living for. 10 years later. We're breaking up, Cindy said flatly. And don't look at me like that. It's not gonna work out. The pumped-up handsome man, clearly not used to rejection, looked at her perplexed, and it seemed even resentful, and muttered, Am I ugly? Cindy grinned. So much for generational misunderstanding, and all of Selena's advice to have an affair with a much younger man. Come on, she jabbed herself. What's Selena got to do with it? You've got your own head on your shoulders. And that head finally realized that this kind of relationship was not for Cindy. No, Steve, you're very handsome, she hastened to reassure her beau. But I think you're too good for me, and I'm embarrassed by that. Kara smiled smugly, and Cindy read her former favorite's mind. Okay then, it was written on his smarmy face. Well, why would she, a smart woman and an excellent doctor, want this narcissist? That's just it, she didn't. It was going to be a busy day. She had a meeting with her friends in an hour. Every Saturday, the charming quartet of women gathered at her favorite cafe. The ladies drank wine and discussed the events of the past week or the issues on the agenda. Cindy went outside, hailed a cab, and sat down on a bench and thought, well, why am I so unlucky in love? She thought sadly, or maybe there isn't any. When Cindy graduated with a red diploma, she had no trouble finding a job. The medical center needed a therapist, and she was invited to work there. Later, she learned that Max, the same her manager with whom they'd had a heart-to-heart talk, had insisted she apply. Cindy was flattered, but it was a flower. Max had his eye on her back then, but at the time, the her manager was married. It couldn't even be called a marriage, the man confided. We lived by inertia. She nodded. She had lived by inertia, but she had also lived like that, by inertia. So she had found a soulmate. That's what it turned out to be. That's why the affair was short-lived. Cindy couldn't live without love. You can't build a relationship on soulmates. She remembered Barry. She'd been burned, but she loved him. For that alone, Cindy was grateful to her late husband in his memory. Max and Cindy had parted as friends. They continued to work together, and then Max was invited to work for some cool advertising agency. Then there was Victor, a neighbor in the private sector, also a widower. And then there was Steve, handsome, athletic, charming, and nothing. Anyway, she's had enough. I have a job I love, loyal girlfriends, a great son, Cindy thought. That's more than enough to enjoy life. When Cindy entered the cafe, all her friends were already there. You're late today, Sarah said. The young lover must have held you up, Selena suggested with an innocent smile. He did, Cindy countered. It took forever for him to realize I was giving him my resignation. What? You blew Steve off? Ariana's head snapped up. Is he the center of the world? She grinned. Actually, Steve is the same age as my son, and I'm embarrassed by that. And you told him that? I did, Cindy nodded. I explained my embarrassment by saying that Kira was supposedly too good for me. Before she could finish, her friends burst out laughing. Yeah, Sarah laughed. You're very self-critical. Cindy finished her glass of wine and said, Okay, girls, it's nice to be with you, but I got to go. What's wrong? Selena asked. Don't tell me you're in a hurry to go on a date with the man of your dreams for whom you gave Steve your resignation. Oh, guys. Cindy rolled her eyes theatrically. Are you guys thinking about something else for a change? We're worried about you, aren't we? The friend said. Thank you very much, she bowed jokingly and then added seriously. But today I finally realized that these affairs are not for me, and neither is love. Well, now I'm leaving you. Tomorrow I have a meeting with the most beloved man in the world, so I have a lot of preparations to make. Lingerie candles. Sarah winked understandingly. Yeah, Cindy grinned. I'll have to bake his favorite liver pies. Billy's coming, Selena guessed, remembering his love of baked liver pies. And not alone, she smiled. Billy's coming with a girl. Good for you, Godson, Ariana said approvingly. Well, if it's with a girl, sure. What kind of girl? I don't know yet. I take it she's from the Institute. Billy was in his 5th year at the Mechanical Engineering Department of the Regional Polytechnic Institute. He was going for a red diploma, which was to be defended in a month. Billy studied a lot, but it did not interfere with the personal life of the charming blue-eyed brunette. Cindy was proud to say that Billy was like her. Mother and son were similar not only in appearance, but also in character. The most important and obvious similarity was the eagerness to study, the desire to learn new things and as a result, to develop. But the loving mother had one more parallel to draw. This parallel was personal life. About the personal life of Billy, a student of mechanical engineering faculty, there were the most incredible rumors. The tall and handsome brunette liked not only female students, but also graduate students and young female teachers. At the same time, no one had ever seen Billy with a girl, and this gave rise to a lot of rumors. Some said that Wesley was an Alfonso. They said that Billy had been seen with a beautiful, well-dressed woman who was about 20 years older than him. When Billy showed one of his classmates a photo of him with his mother, the legend was all that was left. The beautiful, well-dressed woman was Cindy. But the people did not rest on this, and after a while rumors of his unconventional orientation. Soon everyone was convinced that this is not true. The future promising engineer's girlfriend turned out to be Juliana, the institute's barmaid. And what did he find in her? Whispered students, hurt by the fact that the blue-eyed handsome man ignored them in favor of some barmaid. Only Sarah, Billy's classmate, had thought to put the question differently. Maybe she had found it, not him? The shrewd girl was not far from the truth. Julian had a pretty doll face, a seductive shape, and a desire to marry. A rich one, if only. The girl was sure that her virtues were enough for that. But the barmaid, who did not suffer from excessive intelligence, did not think that life is much more complicated than she thought. Once Juliana worked as a waitress in a cafe, and there she drew the attention of a respectable gentleman, which people called daddies. In anticipation of a beautiful life, the girl quit the cafe. And 3 months later, Mickey, as the name of the sponsor, found another shallow hunter for easy money. Left without a job and a rich daddy, Julian became despondent. But then it hit her. We should go out hunting, she thought cheerfully. Julian now realized that the age-old daddy was a temporary option anyway. No, yet one should look for an object for a permanent relationship, and in the long run for a strong and happy marriage. Therefore, the best place for hunting was a cafe where the golden youth hung out. The girl had some money left, enough to sit in an elite institution with taste. And if she was lucky, she wouldn't have to spend it. Juliana went to the hairdresser, chose the best dress bought by her daddy, and went in search of prey. 15 minutes later, she was approached by a handsome, expensively dressed major, whose name was Harry. The young people got to talking. Julian was ashamed to admit that she had nothing to do with the golden youth and had quit their cafe not long ago. And the reason for the dismissal? Not thinking long, the girl said that her father is the general director of the company and her mother is the manager. I see, family business. What kind of company? Harry asked with interest. Ah, well, so it's not here. But Julian found herself. The girl was not modest about her education either. She told her new acquaintance that she studied at the university at the Faculty of Economics. Respectfully stretched out the guy. An economist then. Yes, Julian smiled disarmingly and thought that in a way she was. The young men began dating. Harry turned out not to be some kind of major slacker, but an aspiring entrepreneur. He had a small company producing plastic windows. Harry gave the girl flowers and boxes of expensive chocolates. And one day the guy told Julian that he wanted to meet her parents. The girl didn't know whether to laugh or cry. For once, Juliana met a wealthy young man, and she could not even introduce Harry to her family. All because of her lies. Julian's parents had nothing to do with business. Her father was a construction worker and her mother was a supermarket clerk. And my parents are away right now, Julian replied. That's too bad, the boy replied. For how long? A month and a half to 2 months. You know what? Then I'll introduce you to my parents. Really? Julian was embarrassed. Well, why not? The meeting with Harry's parents took place on Saturday, and it was unforgettable. On the occasion of such an important event, Julian wore a little black dress, which was also donated by a former sponsor. I remember that at the time she was surprised that such a simple-looking dress cost a lot of money. Remember, it's called noble simplicity, Mickey said instructively. And it cost a lot of money, a lot more than brightness and glitter. Julian thought this dress would be a great way to meet the parents of a young rich man. She chose boat shoes and a clutch, unencumbered with decorations, and did her makeup in nude colors. Julian was sure that the noble simplicity would be appreciated. Come in, don't be shy, Harry said cordially. He took the girl by the hand and led her into the hall, where the guy's parents and a fancy table were waiting for them. Mom, Dad, said the boy solemnly. Meet Julianne. This is Julianne, my girlfriend. Seeing Harry's father, Juliana automatically backed away. In front of her was Mickey, her ex-daddy. He was staring at Julianne, and she thought he was going to say something mean. But nothing of the sort happened. Harry's father, as if nothing had happened, greeted the girl, introduced himself, and then introduced his wife. Lucy was a beautiful, slender, and sophisticated woman. What do these daddies lack? Thought Julian involuntarily at the sight of the mature beauty. Oh yes, and she thought that such embarrassments happen only in the movies. Julian, what do you do? Lucy asked with a smile. The girl's tongue stuck to the sky, and it was incredibly difficult to lie in the presence of a person who knew the whole truth about her. And Julian is an economics student, Harry answered for her. Really? Smirked Mickey. It was unlikely that his wife and son noticed the smirk. And if they did, so what? They didn't realize anything anyway. I wonder if they realized the antics of the father of the family. Giggled Julianne to herself. Good girl, praised Lucy. Who are your parents, if it's no secret? The girl remained silent, and Harry, writing it off to her excitement, came to the rescue again. Julianne's parents have a firm in St. Petersburg. Even so, the head of the family nodded ironically. More than anything else in the world, the girl wanted to run away from this house. She scolded herself. Now I have to think of a way to get out of here. It's a shame, of course, but Mickey won't let us be together. And what to do with businessmen parents? Hearing the smartphone trinkle, notifying the owner of a messenger message, Julianne apologized. Probably the parents, she said. Nothing, Lucy nodded understandingly. The message was sent from a familiar, though already deleted, number. If you don't want to get in trouble, get out of here and quick. I don't want you here, read Julianne. The abundance of exclamation marks clearly indicated that her visit had excited Mickey beyond belief. Okay, whatever you say, Julianne thought with a chuckle. I didn't really feel like it. You'll have to excuse me, but I have to run, Julianne said with regret in her voice. So soon? Lucy was surprised, and there was a note of regret in her voice. Julianne was terribly embarrassed, but as they say, out of sight, out of mind. It was better this way, and the fact that she'd lied to Harry out of her ass didn't matter, or rather, it had been relegated to the background. But her former relationship with Mickey is no joke. Sooner or later, all secret things come to light. The girl left the hospitable apartment forever, and since then she and Harry never saw each other again. He, of course, called and wrote, but Julianne, not without regret, put the guy in the CS. When she told this story to her friend Vala, she laughed until she fell. Yes, laughed the girl, relationships were doomed from the beginning, by virtue of aggravating circumstances. Stop laughing, Julianne shouted. By the way, guys like that don't just walk down the street. That's true, Valia nodded seriously. But on the other hand, he's not the only one. And men like you, so it's too early to be discouraged. But I won't go to the cafe for golden youth anymore. You don't have to, my friend exclaimed. You know, Julian, there aren't really that many good guys among them. It's just that you were lucky at the time. And most of them are mama's boys and daddy's boys. And most of them have a nasty temper. Do you want that? What are you suggesting? You want to get married? What's wrong with university students? Yes, I know, now you say that they have no money, not counting the penny scholarship. That's true, but there's a catch. What's the difference? It's obvious, they don't have anything now, but when they get their diplomas and get on their feet. Julian thought about it. It's true. Most of the guys who got their degrees had a good life. And yes, unlike the majors, they were independent. A few days later, while surfing the internet for job openings, Julian saw an ad. Cafe at Polytechnic Institute needs a barmaid. So maybe it was fate. Interesting guy, Julian said as if indifferently, looking at the dark-haired young man with the beautiful blue eyes. Interesting, nodded Catherine, one of the female students she had already made friends with. But what's the use? He's what? The barmaid did not finish, but the girl understood everything perfectly. No, she shook her head, although and such rumors were rumored. But to me, Billy just doesn't have any experience with girls. I wouldn't be surprised if he was still a virgin. All right, Julianne, I'll have 2 scoops of pistachio ice cream with chocolate syrup. And a coffee. No experience, you say? Julianne muttered to herself as Catherine walked away, thinking to herself, maybe he just hasn't met a real woman. The guy left the cafe, unaware that he was being watched closely. At the next break, the enterprising barmaid went on the offensive. When Julianne saw through the glass doors that the blue-eyed brunette was heading for the cafeteria, she tinted her lips and undid the top 2 buttons of her blouse. Listening to you, putting a velvety quality to her voice, the barmaid said as the guy approached the serving counter. I would like a cup of coffee and a pastry basket, the customer asked politely. Julianne asked, leaning against the counter so that her lush breasts were at Billy's eye level. Suddenly, she noticed that the guy was blushing. It made her laugh, but in her heart, Julianne was triumphant. She had clearly made an impression on the guy. Well, yeah, he replied embarrassedly. It's good for the brain. You're in luck. Julian smiled flirtatiously. We're having a special today. Second brownie for free. So your brain will be working as it should. There was a hint in the last phrase, but it was obvious that the boy didn't understand anything. Well, he doesn't have to. He'll figure it out later. Well, in the meantime, a promotion. Billy was surprised. I'd never heard of any promotions here. We have a new boss now. Julian lied with inspiration, and they've decided to have a promotion. The 100th customer would get a second product for free. It was on the eve of the 8th of March. On this occasion, the Institute organized a huge party. The party was attended not only by students, teachers, and administration, but also by junior staff, checkroom attendants, cleaners, canteen attendants, and everyone else. When the white dance was announced, Julian didn't hesitate to invite Billy. The barmaid clung to him in a way that made him uncomfortable, and half an hour later, the student was already opening the dorm room door. "Please," Billy said with a smile. The news of the affair between the student and the barmaid spread through the institute with the speed of a spring forest fire. The boy's friends went into a stupor. Billy's birthday was celebrated in the dormitory. The girls were preparing a festive dinner, and Julian was busily commanding the parade. The barmaid didn't mind the meaningful glances the girls gave her. Julian's look said envy and silence, and they were, needless to say, jealous. The boys had their own point of view. "What are you doing, Pacan?" Evan asked perplexedly when the guys went out for a smoke. "It was just an option for a couple of nights." Billy shrugged philosophically. "Whatever," Stephen grinned. "You can tell a bird by its flight." "Guys, no offense," Weasley said firmly, "but my personal life is my business, and Julian is my choice. She's my girlfriend, and I want you to treat her with respect." "No problem," the friends said in unison, raising their hands as if in surrender. "Are you sure?" Billy asked, confused. "Actually, I took 2 tests and went to the doctor," Julian said resentfully. "Or don't you believe me?" "No, I don't." Billy hastened to reassure her. "Well, if that's the case, let's go to my place. I'll introduce you to my mom." "If that's the case?" the girl exclaimed. "You mean if I wasn't pregnant, you wouldn't introduce me to your mom?" "Julian, don't twist things around," the guy grumbled. Frankly, Julian's pregnancy was a no-brainer right now. He was about to defend his diploma. Billy didn't get enough sleep, and his beloved was throwing tantrums on the spot. However, he realized that the child was not to blame. Billy was far from denying paternity. He would marry Julian, as an honest man should. Billy suddenly thought of his mother. When he was a boy, he had heard Grandma Betty and his father say more than once that his mother had tied the baby down and should be grateful to them for covering up the sin. He didn't understand anything at the time, but as he got older, he realized it wasn't that simple. One day, 8-year-old Billy overheard a conversation between Grandma Angelica and an old friend, and she said that it was Grandma Betty who insisted on marriage. And when Billy was 10 or 11 years old, he wondered what his mother had to thank his father and Grandma Betty for. As it turned out, there was nothing to be thankful for. His father had been a constant libertine, and Grandma Betty had been self-effacing. As Grandma Angelica said, she's got her idol and is enjoying married life with her young husband. "Why am I bringing all this up?" thought Billy perplexedly, and then he realized he and his mother had similar fates. Gender adjusted, of course, except that Julian doesn't fight, but that's pretty much it. And another thing, she and her mother are goal-oriented people. Perhaps their life principle can be summarized in the words of a famous saying, "Live and learn forever." Mother received a medical degree when she was already 38, and this is not everyone decides, while there haves. "Well, aren't you an idiot?" Billy chided himself. "I love Julian, and I don't care whether she's a barmaid or a member of the State Duma." The young men got out of the minibus and walked toward the Gurianot's house. It was a pretty house, Juliana noted. The house really did look the part. The plastic windows, put in when her father was still alive, looked as good as new. The house was finished with gray and white siding and a silver metal roof. The improvised landscaping using car tires and kefir bottles also looked very nice, especially now when peonies, violets, and irises were blooming in the beds of tires, exuding a marvelous smell. Glad you like it, Billy smiled. A beautiful, slender brunette with the same blue eyes as his came out onto the porch. You didn't tell me you had a sister, Julian said. So I don't have a sister, laughed Billy. Meet my mom, Cindy. Come on, Cindy, the woman grinned. I'm not that old yet. Just call me Cindy. How young she is, Julian thought enviously. Or maybe she just had an early birth. Julian, what do you do? Cindy asked, and she grinned. She was immediately reminded of another acquaintance. I'm a barmaid, she answered, looking at her potential mother-in-law defiantly. A barmaid? But Billy told me you were from college. I am from the Institute. I worked there as a barmaid. What's wrong? Not good enough. Julian, I don't think I've done anything to offend you, Cindy said. And no, I have nothing against barmaids. I married a handyman as a student, so. Mom, don't mind me, my son intervened. Julian's just nervous. It's normal in her condition. Hormones, you know. Oh my God, Cindy burst out. Guys, you have to warn me. What difference would it have made? The girl squinted. Julian, why are you being so hard on yourself? Of course, it wouldn't have changed anything. But this isn't about buying a dog, is it? And by the way, I'm a doctor, and I know a lot of specialists. Good specialists. No thanks, she shook her head. We in the regional center with this problem is not. Well, as you know. She doesn't sound sincere, Cindy told her friends. Oh, I can feel it in my heart that this isn't gonna end well. Can't Billy see past his own nose? Cindy, Ariana said mockingly. Doesn't this remind you of anything? Imagine it does, she exclaimed. Is that a reason to let your son get involved with who knows who? I'm pretty sure that woman's got Billy wrapped around her finger. I don't mean that in a reproachful way. It's just that you know that when you're in love, you think, this is the only person I'll ever be happy with. Isn't that right? Yes, Cindy nodded sadly. So what do we do now? What? Selena hummed cheerfully. You need a man. Who's talking about what? And she's right. Ariana and Sarah said it together. Oh, come on. A week later, Cindy met her daughter-in-law's parents. They turned out to be nice people, and the future mother-in-law thought, maybe I'm getting myself worked up for nothing. Perhaps Julian really nervous, as any girl when meeting the groom's family. And then there are the hormones. The wedding was decided to play in the banquet hall of a cafe, the owner of which was a friend of the bride's mother. Will make us a good discount, winked Anna. The wedding was fun, but Cindy suddenly felt like she was losing her son. What's the big deal? Ariana asked, perplexed. Yes, the boy has his own family now, but you're not going to stop being his mother. Come on, friend, smile. She was wearing a national costume, in which Ariana was handing out pancakes as godmother. Her friend had beet blush on her cheeks, and looking at her, it was impossible not to smile. There, that's better, exclaimed the charming peddler of pancakes. But on the soul of the mother of the groom scratched Cass. There were only a few days left before the diploma defense, and Billy was scrambling, and his young wife was demanding attention, and she was cranky. Billy, she called out. What? The husband asked absent-mindedly. I want strawberries. Billy almost howled, but held back. 15 minutes ago, he had returned from the store where he had gone at the request of his wife, who wanted bananas. Billy had brought a bunch, but Julian had barely taken a bite of one banana and now demanded strawberries. Julian, I don't have time for this, Billy replied patiently. Would you wait half an hour? No, I won't, she said in a tone that didn't tolerate objections. Then go yourself, suggested her husband. They say it's good for pregnant women to walk. I don't feel well. Well, all right, Billy sighed and got up from the table. Every day, God knows he tried to be understanding, but every day it was getting harder and harder. Be patient, his mother said. She'd give birth and be the same. The young father-to-be only sighed heavily. When will that be? Billy, I don't think your mom likes me, Julian once told me. Why would you say that? Actually, she wasn't far from the truth. Billy knew it was true, although Cindy had the wisdom to hide it. Well, I'm not blind. She also doesn't believe it's your baby. Did she tell you that herself? Her husband asked, busy preparing his defense as usual. Well, not directly, of course. Julian stretched out. But the last time she came to visit us, what was it? Oh, nothing, she said casually. Anyway, Billy, it would be better if your mother didn't come here anymore. All right, I'll tell her that, Billy sighed. Just don't tell her I told you about it. Okay, Julian kept up. Okay, I won't. But how am I going to explain it to her? How do you want to explain it to her? She replied nonchalantly. Well, tell her there's no place to sleep. Well, I understand, Billy nodded. What's there to yell about? You want positive emotions, but you're yelling like a victim. Calm down, I heard you. Honestly, the wife smiled. Julian's mood was changing like the weather. Honestly honest, he said, kissing his wife on the temple. Billy never dared to tell his mother what his wife had asked. Sometimes he felt like he was caught in the middle of some terrible element. That's basically what it is, Billy thought. I'm between two fires, and fire is an element. He had no idea what to do in such a delicate and unpleasant situation. After all, Billy loved them both and wanted everyone to live together, but it seemed he wanted too much. Cindy didn't recognize her son, and that was the issue on another Saturday agenda. Well, I don't know, shrugged Sarah. It seems to me like you're making a storm in a glass of water. No, I'm not, Cindy said thoughtfully. As soon as I offer to come over and bring groceries, Billy says he doesn't have to and promises to come himself. So what? Snorted Ariane. The newlyweds want to be alone. Julian's pregnant, so there's no time for guests. Besides, the son promised to come himself. He's not coming, she said. Well, honey, the kid's got a defense coming up, no time to travel, and he promised. Well, I don't know, so you don't take offense. Yeah, I guess, Cindy mumbled. I'm a bit of a mess. So why would you go to the sanitarium? Selena asked cautiously. Get some rest, get better. I'm not going to a sanitarium. She waved her hand. Lately, Cindy had been having some serious heart problems. Her colleagues urged her to go to a sanatorium, but Cindy didn't want to hear about it. Not yet, she told cardiologist Veretinikov with a sigh. Medic, and so careless about your health, strictly reprimanded her colleague. Stephen, I solemnly swear to you, as soon as I deal with all my affairs, I will take care of my health, said Cindy with a smile. So why should I swear? A little better, grinned Veretinikov. It's your health, and it doesn't ask about your affairs. The doctor was right, of course, but Cindy knew that until she could figure things out for herself, she wouldn't be able to rest easy. Well, you shouldn't, said Sarah. You're tearing up your soul, not to mention your heart. But Cindy shook her head stubbornly. Waking up at dawn, Cindy remembered that her son had a defense today and decided to call. Billy answered right away. Hi, honey, she said with a tenderness that made her son's heart ache. Hi, May. How are you feeling? Fighting, I hope. You bet. Well, good for you. Break a leg. Go to hell, Billy said cheerfully, and mother and son laughed merrily. Almost like before, Cindy thought sadly, but almost. The defense of the diploma went brilliantly. The classmates celebrated the event in a cafe, and a grand banquet was planned for the evening in the dormitory. Are you coming? Stephen asked. No, guys, I'll pass. Billy said no. I'd love to, but, well, you know what I mean. Yeah, Stephen nodded. Home family. Hello to your wife. Back home, Billy was in for another round of hysterics. I'm sitting here alone and you're having fun. Julian said it unhappily, not even asking how the defense had gone. But Julian. Billy didn't know what to say. Okay, forget it, she said. And then suddenly, with a painful wince, she clutched her stomach. What's the matter? Billy asked fearfully. No, it's nothing, it's fine, Julian whispered, but it sounded unconvincing. What about it, though? The doctor said it's a miscarriage. What? Julian, this is not a joke. Should we call an ambulance? No, don't do that. The doctor says it happens from time to time. So now we have to call an ambulance every time. I don't know, Billy shrugged. I think it's better to be safe. Billy, I know what's best for me, Julian said softly. Well, okay, if that's the case. After his diploma, Billy wondered if he could find a job. He surfed the internet, went on interviews, but so far, alas, to no avail. Julian grumbled that her husband wasn't spending enough time with her, to which Billy remarked, Julian, I apologize profusely, but what are we going to live on? On your barmaid's salary. What's wrong with my job? Julian stood up. Yes, I have no higher education, and I work as a simple barmaid. But you knew who you were marrying. What's that got to do with it? He was surprised. But you have nothing to do with everything, shouted the wife so loudly that even choked. And your mother also nothing to do. She's definitely got nothing to do with it now, Billy said, trying to be calm. That's it, honey. I'm out of here. Where to? Julian was stunned, obviously hoping to continue the verbal altercation. Billy even began to suspect that she was enjoying these skirmishes. To the interview, he cut off and left the apartment. Missed again, Billy thought dejectedly. Another failed job interview. It was all about the same lack of work experience, except where to get it. He made his way to the public garden and looked over at the pub. His mother had given him some money in honor of his diploma, so Billy could afford to drink with grief. And not only that, he was already finishing a month of cold and wildly tasty beer when Julianne called. Well, I understand, Billy nodded. What's there to yell about? You want positive emotions, but you're yelling like a victim. Calm down, I heard you. Honestly, the wife smiled. Julian's mood was changing like the weather. Honestly, he said, kissing his wife on the temple. Billy never dared to tell his mother what his wife had asked. Sometimes he felt like he was caught in the middle of some terrible element. That's basically what it is, Billy thought. I'm between two fires, and fire is an element. He had no idea what to do in such a delicate and unpleasant situation. After all, Billy loved them both and wanted everyone to live together, but it seemed he wanted too much. Cindy didn't recognize her son, and that was the issue on another Saturday agenda. Well, I don't know, shrugged Sarah. It seems to me like you're making a storm in a glass of water. No, I'm not, Cindy said thoughtfully. As soon as I offer to come over and bring groceries, Billy says he doesn't have to and promises to come himself. So what? Snorted Ariane. The newlyweds want to be alone. Julian's pregnant, so there's no time for guests. Besides, the son promised to come himself. He's not coming, she said. Well, honey, the kid's got a defense coming up. No time to travel. And he promised. Well, I don't know, so you don't take offense. Yeah, I guess, Cindy mumbled. I'm a bit of a mess. So why don't you go to the sanitarium? Selena asked cautiously. Get some rest, get better. I'm not going to a sanitarium. She waved her hand. Lately, Cindy had been having some serious heart problems. Her colleagues urged her to go to a sanatorium, but Cindy didn't want to hear about it. Not yet, she told cardiologist Veretinikov with a sigh. Medic, and so careless about your health, strictly reprimanded her colleague. Stephen, I solemnly swear to you, as soon as I deal with all my affairs, I will take care of my health, said Cindy with a smile. So why should I swear? A little better, grinned Veretinikov. It's your health, and it doesn't ask about your affairs. The doctor was right, of course, but Cindy knew that until she could figure things out for herself, she wouldn't be able to rest easy. Well, you shouldn't, said Sarah. You're tearing up your soul, not to mention your heart. But Cindy shook her head stubbornly. Waking up at dawn, Cindy remembered that her son had a defense today and decided to call. Billy answered right away. Hi, honey, she said with a tenderness that made her son's heart ache. Hi, May. How are you feeling? Fighting, I hope. You bet. Well, good for you. Break a leg. Go to hell, Billy said cheerfully, and mother and son laughed merrily. Almost like before, Cindy thought sadly, but almost. The defense of the diploma went brilliantly. The classmates celebrated the event in a cafe, and a grand banquet was planned for the evening in the dormitory. Are you coming? Stephen asked. No, guys, I'll pass. Billy said no. I'd love to, but, well, you know what I mean. Yeah, Stephen nodded. Home family. Hello to your wife. Back home, Billy was in for another round of hysterics. I'm sitting here alone and you're having fun. Julian said it unhappily, not even asking how the defense had gone. But Julianne. Billy didn't know what to say. Okay, forget it, she said. And then suddenly, with a painful wince, she clutched her stomach. What's the matter? Billy asked fearfully. No, it's nothing, it's fine, Julian whispered, but it sounded unconvincing. What about it, though? The doctor said it's a miscarriage. What? Julian, this is not a joke. Should we call an ambulance? No, don't do that. The doctor says it happens from time to time. So now we have to call an ambulance every time. I don't know, Billy shrugged. I think it's better to be safe. Billy, I know what's best for me, Julian said softly. Well, okay, if that's the case. After his diploma, Billy wondered if he could find a job. He surfed the internet, went on interviews, but so far, alas, to no avail. Julian grumbled that her husband wasn't spending enough time with her, to which Billy remarked, Julian, I apologize profusely, but what are we going to live on? On your barmaid's salary. What's wrong with my job? Julian stood up. Yes, I have no higher education, and I work as a simple barmaid, but you knew who you were marrying. What's that got to do with it? He was surprised. But you have nothing to do with everything, shouted the wife so loudly that even choked. And your mother also nothing to do. She's definitely got nothing to do with it now, Billy said, trying to be calm. That's it, honey. I'm out of here. Billy was already in the driveway when he got the call. It was a number he didn't recognize. Hello, are you Billy Wesley? The caller asked. Well, let's say I am, he answered. This is Anthony, a cardiologist from the Fourth City Hospital. The thing is, your mother. Billy went cold. What's wrong with my mom? Listening to the doctor, the boy went cold, and he hadn't realized his mother had a heart problem. What did you even know, asshole? Reprimanded Billy to himself. Unable to contain his emotions any longer, he sobbed like a child. When Billy entered the apartment, Julian was chirping merrily on the phone, looking out the window. Normally, he would have made himself known right away, lest, God forbid, he be suspected of eavesdropping. But this time it was as if something had made Billy stop and listen to what his wife was saying. Lucy, it's all right, she said cheerfully to her friend. Now I'm bringing him to the fact that I'm in danger of miscarriage, and of course, showy tantrums. By the way, the idea of dinner was brilliant. Thank you. How? It's very simple. Billy will come home in a week, and I'll be lying in bed, all sick. He's gonna ask me what's wrong, and I'm gonna tell him I had a miscarriage. But this sucker won't understand anything anyway. Well, of course not. I neutralized my mother. Julian suddenly turned around sharply and seeing her husband said, I'll call you back. Bravo. Billy nodded and slowly, with formation, struck his hands 3 times. And why, I wondered, were you a barmaid? Billy, you've got it all wrong. Julian justified herself pathetically. Oh, don't give me that. He waved his hand. Well, you weren't lying about my mother. She's in the hospital right now. You really neutralized her to perfection. In the hospital? Julian whispered, I'm sorry. Oh, really? Grinned Billy. Billy gathered his things and said at the door, Well, darling, see you later. I'm filing for divorce this week, and good luck finding a new idiot. Cindy looked much better. She had an appetite and a healthy blush on her cheeks. Anthony entered the room with a pretty little basket of flowers and a bag of fruit. Well, beautiful. He waved his hands cheerfully. But I think you'll look even more beautiful now. If, of course, it is possible. And what will happen? The patient asked with a smile. Now you will see. Anthony answered and turned to someone standing in the corridor. Please, may I? Shyly asked painfully familiar and so dear voice. Mom, I'm sorry. I was such an idiot. Billy, Cindy exclaimed and cried. Come here, I'm gonna kick your ears off. Kick your ears off, my son humbly replied. I've earned it. Son, meet Anthony, she said. A very good man and, well, he is. Mom, I understand everything, the son replied with a smile, looking meaningfully at the basket of flowers. And something tells me that it is he who will help you forget all your troubles. Mom, you know what I remember? What do you remember? Cindy, Anthony, and Billy coming out of the registry office. I remembered how you graduated from the institute, and I just started studying, answered my son. So you're getting married and I'm getting divorced, Billy sighed. Cindy hugged her son and said, You'll be happy yet. They got into the car and drove to the restaurant, where the closest parents of the newlyweds, Betty, some of Anthony's friends, and of course Ariana, Selena, and Sarah were waiting for them. Anthony held Cindy's hand, and she smiled serenely and thought, and I, silly me, was afraid of change.